Ready? Yeah, okay. Good evening, everyone. I call the Thursday, March 9th, 2023 Peninsula School District Board of Directors meeting to order. Would you please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we're going to roll into the approval of the agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We'll go with Lori. It has been moved by Jennifer and seconded by Lori. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. The agenda is approved. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Is there any discussion prior to the vote? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
David, okay. Second by Chuck. It's been moved by David and seconded by Chuck to approve the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Consent agenda approved. All right. Tonight we have a special presentation. We've got students from Goodman Middle School here. These are our avid students, and they're gonna do a performance for us or give us a presentation. So come on up to the mic, you guys.
Okay, well, we'll get started here. Hello and welcome to our AVID presentation. My name is William Brandt, and I'm so grateful for the school board to let us come and share what AVID is all about. I would like to introduce who is presenting tonight. We have Catalina Pilot, we have Bells Jones, Preston Nelson, Xavier Talley, Jasper Foytik, Andrew Ely, Andy Contreras, and Abby Khan.
What is AVID? It's not only something to help you rise above and get you better with grades and your GPA, it can also help you as an individual to meet new people and have those people also help you while you can help them. But to do that, you also have to have the determination so AVID can help you. It can help you rise above and improve your academic learning and help you get into college and your further careers.
How does AVID help you with organization? AVID helps students with organization by using agendas, binders, and organized backpacks. We frequently use agenda checks, backpack checks, and binder checks to stay organized, and we write WIL, what I learned, in our agendas to keep up on the following week, and we use WIL to reflect on our learning and to also answer the essential question.
On Mondays it is mostly AVID Focus, and AVID Focus is just a bunch of these strategies that are made by that are in the AVID curriculum, and those are mostly focused on organization, collaboration, different skills to help in the future, and also reading skills, which is known as WICR, which stands for Writing, Inquiry, Collaboration, Organization, and Reading.
Tutorial Tuesday is a day where we get in groups and form a tutorial led by a person with a point of confusion, or as an AVID we call it a POC, and ask questions to not give the answer to the person with the POC, but to help them find the answer on their own.
Then on Wednesdays is pretty much a work day for all of us, because it pretty much acts as our WIN class, which stands for What I Need, because we don't have that on Wednesdays. So then we just use that day to catch up on like missing work and just getting our overall grade up, pretty much.
And Thursdays are career exploration days. We have different guests from around the community come in and teach us about their career path, and they guide us through their education, and like they share valuable life lessons and give us like experience and give us all the tools we need to succeed in life.
Fun Friday is a day where we usually have fun, wind down after a week, and we do games to help social team working, having fun, and sometimes we just do a game like where we did a card game, and there's a card on our forehead. We have to guess what our job career is, but we can only say what we think it is, but our peers can only answer yes or no, and we can also say yes or no to our peers.
AVID provides students with encouragement from our peers around us to help us get through the day and get all of our work done. AVID also provides everyday help from our teachers and our students to help us with our classes, get our grades up, and get smarter. Some AVID activities that AVID students participate in is college and career research, where we pick our top 5 colleges and evaluate which one we think best fits us. Another AVID activity that AVID students participate in is community service. During community service, we go down to the cafeteria and help out our custodian, Mrs. Kelly. And these 2 pictures right here is what we were practicing community service with our custodian, Miss Kelly. So that is very helpful, and our custodian enjoyed that a lot. And then another activity that AVID students participate in is college campus field trips. During college campus field trips, we learn about the college, and we take notes on the future, like what we want to do in our future life, and what colleges we want to go to. And this picture is what we call the POU college. We took a field trip there, and it gave us a thorough explanation and answered some big questions for us for our future.
Lastly, we would like to thank you for letting us take up this time to present to you about AVID, and we would happily take any questions or comments that any of you guys had at this time.
That was excellent, you guys. Thank you very much. That takes a lot of courage to come up here and do it. I have a couple questions. I'm sure we all do. I would like to hear an example of a point of confusion. Could that be something in any of your classes that you're just not getting, or what would that look like?
Yeah, so it's just something that you do at one of your classes, and you either have a confusion about it, the topic, or just have a question about it. And so we will write down on a big scratch piece of paper. Let me go back to the slide here. Here. Yeah, right there. So the point of confusion was an advanced math problem, and so we talk about it, and then you can only give questions about it, like can you do something to find out that equation or something like that.
I'd just like to add to that, you don't have to know the answer to the question. Will did a good job explaining it, but not all of our students are in advanced math, even though AVID does push you to be in at least one advanced class. So we just ask questions from our sheet. We have a sheet, our packet, Bloom's levels of questioning, and so they're advanced questions that help us determine the answer on our own instead of being given the answer.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. Go ahead.
You can ask one. So according to the slide, there's 18 Goodman students in Avid. I guess I'll direct the question to you. You seem to be the spokesperson. Can anyone be an Avid or only certain students?
So anyone can be an Avid. It's for any type of student, mid-range, like any grades. It doesn't matter, but Avid pushes you to do better in classes and pushes you to get better at things.
Okay, so I guess follow-up question still is there's 18 of you, so if you think Avid is so great, my son was in Avid when he was in middle school, and he still uses the tools today. Mm-hmm. So how would you encourage more of your fellow Goodman Roadrunners to join Avid?
So we went around to WIN classes, and we presented what Avid is about, what Avid is like, and what we do in Avid. And so we're hoping that the following 7th graders will join Avid, and then, yeah.
Do you guys have a presentation or a speech component? Because I'm really impressed with how well all of you are able to speak, both from notes and off the top of your head. No? Well done. Yeah.
Yes. So you talked a little bit about college, that you were touring some of the colleges and stuff. Do you also look at other careers, maybe going to job sites and, yeah?
Yes, we do actually. So on Thursday we have a career day. So we have people come in who talk about their career and how they got in their path in life. And if we actually want that career, we can actually follow them and listen to what they're saying and figure out if we want that job. We can figure out how we can get there.
Okay.
And when we go to colleges, they tell us about the campus and certain classes they teach.
Mm-hmm. Nice. All right.
One other thing I would like to say about that is that to be an Avid, you don't have to want to go to college. You can just learn about it if you want, but I'm not planning to go to college, but it can still help you just in case you would want to.
Just like another thing to add, like soon we're probably one of like the field trip things coming up is we're gonna go to Chipotle and just see how it's run, kind of.
I just have a quick follow-up question about Career Day on Thursdays. What determines who comes in to speak? Do you guys express careers that you're interested in, and then someone finds a person to come in and talk about that?
So Ms. Zamberlin really just takes care of it. I don't know how she does it, but most recently we had Timothy Acker from Timothy Acker Attorney, and I just thought that was like super cool because he was super honest with us. And I think she's been like, first we've had like parents, like I've had my mom come in, Andy's mom has come in, Ember, who isn't here tonight, but there's a lot of parents that have come in, and so that really like kicked things off. And then we had different members of the community, so it's just, I think we find anyone who's willing to come in, so if anyone wants to come in, that'd be nice.
Just a little more on that topic is that we don't just only take like just really high-end jobs or just like only one section or I guess type. We go from like lawyers to like restaurant owners or to like people that work in nursing homes or things like that. Just we go all over the place and try to get as much knowledge about all these different experiences in that class.
Yep.
That is going to be a very tough act to follow, for sure. But we're going to roll on to item 6, comments from the community. Speakers will be given up to 3 minutes. We'll be displaying the countdown timer so that speakers will be aware of the time. Board Policy 1430 states in part that the president may exercise discretion to interrupt or terminate an individual's statement when it is too lengthy, personally directive, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. I'll call the first speaker's name and then the next up speaker. Speakers, please state your first and last name for the record. So first this evening we have Mark Nance, and then after Mark we have Bob, looks like Hartnett. Okay, so you'll be next, Bob.
Good evening, Superintendent Barr and honorable school board members. My name is Mark Nance, and I'm an interested father and Gig Harbor resident. Thank you for your time this evening and for your continued service to our community and its families. I'd like to address 2 topics tonight. One is appreciation and the other is a request. First, I want to thank you for developing an excellent strategic plan and being transparent with the public and offering a chance for public input and comment last year. I appreciate the 5 pillars of academics, innovation, fiscal responsibility, learning environment, and community engagement. Having performed strategic planning at the Boeing Company for 20 years, I couldn't be happier with your strategic planning process and its outcome. Well done. A strategic plan defines your North Star and aligns any organization with a shared vision, its mission, and its values. In addition to defining what an organization will do, a strategic plan also defines what an organization will not do. This leads me to my second point, my request. Over the last several months, we've heard from several whistleblowers who have come forward to share concerns about progressive curriculum which are being taught in the classroom. My analysis of publicly available OSPI and Pierce County information shows that the more a school district implements these progressive policies, the worse the academics. For example, our friends in the largest school district across the bridge is the most open about its progressive policies, and its combined or its average English, math, and science scores on the OSPI website are 35%. 2/3 are failing based on OSPI standards. I don't think that's acceptable. I'm not sure if this is causation or correlation, but parents are concerned. We hear that you don't teach critical race theories, yet we hear it popping up and see it popping up in our high schools. We hear that you're not caving into the progressive left, yet we're seeing the increased use of pronouns among staff and students. The fact that there are parents who don't trust district staff and board members such that they have to become whistleblowers should be a concern. I would encourage you to stay with your strategic plan and not get distracted by these progressive policies which will slow your plan's execution. We already have families of 500 students who have left and stopped blowing their whistle. Please stay focused on your plan for academics, innovation, fiscal responsibility, learning environment and community engagement, and make us all proud. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. I'm Bob Hartnett, actually a friend of the school district. I'm here tonight just to show concern and give some insight to the issue of our $12 million shortfall in funding due to student enrollment. Besides being a local homeowner and resident, I am a Troops to Teachers, certified in math, social studies, and special education. I was with Bill and Melinda Gates Educational Foundation, and since 2011 till COVID, I was in Africa teaching for the State Department. I think the reason for our declining student numbers, and I'll give two personal cases of that, is, well, first the cases, my son and daughter-in-law have opted to take my two grandsons to the private schools where they're currently enrolled. Now, they're in Puyallup School District, and we did talk about coming over here, but I couldn't convince them. But both Pete and Emily are graduates of Emerald Ridge High School, Puyallup products from the school system. My son went to Harvard as a software engineer. My daughter-in-law is a cougar, physical therapist over at St. Joe's. So the concern is, from them, the academic qualities. And I pulled up the OSPI that they quoted me on, and sure enough, we're not meeting our standards. So 70% here in our school district for English, 50% for mathematics, and I think 49% or 50% for science. So I think it's the academic concerns of the parents and the social agendas that they're worried about coming into the school systems. The other one is my orthopedic surgeon, who I didn't know actually lives over here but practices in Tacoma. They're homeschooling for the same reasons, looking for a slot into the private schools. So I would encourage the board to keep our funding, to keep the quality of the academics, and not to go down to social curriculum agendas. That's the parental concern that I share from two real-world examples. So with that, thank you very much. If anybody wants to know about African education system, I'll tell you about it. It's actually quite good. Okay, great. Thank you.
Next up, we have Jeremy Clark, and then after Jeremy Clark, we have Peter Frazier.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Clark. I have two children in the district, and my question is actually related to one of your policies that I was hoping to get clarification on. It is actually policy 3207P related to harassment, intimidation, and bullying. I'm looking for clarification on the appeal process for this, which is on page 8 of 9 in your policy, step 5, section or numbers 2 and 3. It's my understanding that this appeal process is in front of you, the board, and that's what I would like to get clarification on. Today I was told differently from the school district, and I believe that to be incorrect.
So we won't comment back on public comment, but if you could send an email over to the superintendent, maybe tomorrow, we can get that.
I've already gone through the school district, and
Okay.
that's where I'm getting pushback. So it's my understanding you guys create the policy, sign off on the policies, so that's where I'm looking for clarification from you.
Okay. Do we have your contact information?
You have my phone number, yes.
Is it on this form?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is. Okay. All right.
Okay.
We will follow up with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have Peter Frazier.
Hi, my name is Peter Fraser, and I'm the parent of a high school student. I want to read a letter that was sent to the Peninsula School Board and Superintendent Barr from 35 members of Gig Harbor for Racial Justice. I'm going to start with a quote by Dr. Ibram X. Kendi from his book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. One either allows racial inequalities to persevere as a racist or confronts racial inequalities as an anti-racist. There is no in-between safe space of not racist. The claim of not racist neutrality is a mask for racism. Dear Peninsula School Board and Superintendent Barr, we are parents, community members, and concerned citizens who love our community and care about our children's education. We want our students to learn and thrive in a diverse environment and feel safe. There was an alleged racist incident that happened between Gig Harbor and Peninsula High School students at a basketball game in January. We are writing to voice our thoughts on how this situation was handled and to get clarity on how we can move forward. There is a history of racism in our school district. This racism hasn't been addressed directly, and because of that, it's allowed to continue. No healing is allowed to take place. Whether the incident occurred or not, there was a missed opportunity by the Peninsula School District to help our students and community learn and grow, and to take a stand. We needed the leaders of the Peninsula School District to use this incident and others to point out policy that currently exists, and the specific actions it will take to create the environment it espouses for in the recently released strategic plan. There are students of color and LGBTQIA+ students that do not feel safe in the Peninsula School District. This needs to be named out loud and addressed directly, not hinted at or inferred. Specific actions need to be outlined by the district and administrators as to how they are supporting students in creating an inclusive and safe environment. This needs to happen at the community, administration, and school level. Will the board and administration step up and have the courage to address this directly? Will the board and administration be willing to make this district a place that students of color and LGBTQIA+ students come to and are not forced to run away from? We know the district has started training around equity, diversity, and inclusion belonging, and this is a great start. There's a lot of work to be done. We are far behind other districts around us. We need the school district to repair the hurt that has been caused by this and other alleged racist incidents. We need to hear that all students are safe and accepted no matter their ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender identity. We need to hear that February is Black History Month. We need to hear a clear statement that hate speech will not be tolerated in any form in the future, if and when it happens. We need the district to reach out to students and families of color and in the LGBTQIA+ community and hear their experiences and what they need to feel safe and to have an inclusive learning environment. Thank you for your time and your work on behalf of our students and community. We look forward to partnering with you and helping in any way we can. Gig Harbor for Racial Justice.
Thank you. Thank you. And next up we have Michael Perot.
Michael Perot. I'm here tonight to talk about some comments, a comment that was made at the February 9th board meeting. I reached out to David Olson and right after the next day or that evening, and he responded quickly and said he made a misstatement, and I thank him for, appreciate that, David, and I can certainly relate. I've made plenty of misstatements in my time. So, but I do feel it's important to clarify the statement and that it's not correct here at the meeting, because I'm fear that some within the district will think that what they're doing is right, and it is completely not. The comment was, I just noticed we don't have dyslexic parents come to school board meetings. Obviously, the school district's doing something right, so I'm happy to hear about that. And again, David, thank you for clarifying that that was a misstatement. There is something true, dyslexic parents aren't coming to the meetings, and it's not because the district's doing something right. It's more has to do with the fact that there's embarrassment and shame. You hear people say, I'm not good at math. You don't hear people say, I can't read. But the reality is, and so when kids can't read, it's embarrassing to their families, and it reflects on the parents, and it's really hard to deal with. So they don't like to come and share that with people. And the fact is that the district just has nothing to provide dyslexic students how to read. And the abysmal reading scores of the Peninsula School District, with a third of the students who aren't reading at grade level, many of the grades, is just unacceptable. And so I've said it before and I'll say it again, and some parents will just go away because they're tired and worn out and beat down by the administration telling them, no, we're not going to give you something. But I'm not going to go away. I'm going to keep telling you all that something needs to be done. And I'm asking you as my elected representatives to this government to take clear and decisive action. I know, David, you've said it many times, and I agree with it for the most part, that it's your job to, not your job to tell the staff what to do, but to hold them accountable. Unfortunately, when decades go by and students don't learn to read and dyslexic students get left behind, and as being part of the dyslexia parent group, we see these parents come and they're just, it's horrible. They're in high school and their kids are in high school and they're reading at 4th grade levels. This isn't uncommon. At some point, yeah, it's not your job to tell them what to do, but if they've gotten this far, they sure can't figure it out, evidently, and somebody needs to tell them what to do. And that's where I'm asking you all to take clear and decisive action to ensure these kids learn to read and succeed. Thanks, and I appreciate your service.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our comments from the public, so we are going to move on to our reports and discussions. So first up, we have Natalie Boyle with additional AVID information and presentation for us.
Thank you. I feel like my 7th grade cohort at Goodman has done the job, so we could be done. I can certainly get through this a lot faster. I am Natalie Boyle. I am the Director of Innovative Learning for the school district, and this is also my first year serving as the AVID District Director. So I have had that opportunity to serve as District Director since September. I'm getting to know of the AVID program and entrenching myself in training and in the collaboration with teachers and with the students, and so I have just an update on where our AVID programs are. This is our 8th year of AVID implementation in the Peninsula School District. AVID's mission, which you heard our students talking about a little bit, is about closing the opportunity gap by preparing all students for college and career readiness and success in the global society. And Chuck, you asked the students specifically about that career piece. That is a new piece for AVID, I think, within the last year. They have changed their mission statement to include career, being cognizant of the different interests of students and looking at the data. And so it is about that college and career readiness and setting students up for that success. Our students talked a lot about the AVID elective. And there's 2 different elements within AVID and that successful implementation within a school. So our Goodman students talked about the AVID elective. I'll come to that in a moment. There are also AVID school-wide strategies. So when we get our teachers and our administrators trained in AVID, we don't just take the teachers that are teaching the AVID elective, because there's strategies that all students benefit from. And when we as educators use common languages throughout our classes, then our students benefit from that as well. You heard our students talk about some of those school-wide strategies in connection with their electives. So you heard them talking about WICR, which again is writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, reading, and routine practice. And then planners. Many of our AVID schools have school-wide AVID planner systems and binder checks, and that's done within their advisory period, especially within our middle schools. So there's a lot of school-wide structures that go into place when we have AVID within a school. And then as you saw firsthand tonight, that AVID elective, it truly is an AVID family. So there are a lot of things and standards that an AVID elective teacher goes through to have incorporated within their class. But it really is about this cohort of students who feel safe and grow as not only learners, but as people. Our AVID elective students at Goodman, they're 7th graders this year. And they'll be a cohort together in 8th grade as well. And so in our middle school programs, depending on the school, they're together for 1 to 2 years. Peninsula High School, once they go into AVID elective as ninth graders, they're together in that elective as long as they continue to keep on enrolling throughout their entire 4 years. And so that is a family and a community that keeps each other up. They encourage each other like you saw tonight. They really do. It's more than just the academic piece. It's learning to be a human and to grow as a family. So with AVID, we create our own district goals, as well as supporting AVID as a whole district. So our Peninsula School District AVID goal is closely tied to our strategic plan goal. So the goal that I wrote for our team is that by the 23-24 school year, all ninth grade AVID students will be on track to graduate. So you'll recognize some of that wording. And we're well on a way. I'll give us some statistics soon. One of these pictures looks familiar, but part of that is that excitement, even starting in middle school, of understanding what a college or, what that career experience is and what it takes. And that doesn't just start in 12th grade. That starts in the middle school to give them that exposure and that reason for, this is why we work hard. This is why we have to do these things. I was with our AVID program manager, our regional one. I got the pleasure of showing her around our district and sharing some classrooms with her yesterday. And a student came up, they were working and turning in an assignment that they were going to do the next day, but around that problem of practice that you heard our Goodman students. And she said, the teacher prompted her and said, tell them about how you feel about doing this work in preparation for our work on Wednesday. And she goes, I used to hate it, and I would make up answers and I wouldn't do it, and I was failing all my classes. And then I decided I have ownership of this and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to take the time and energy. And guess what? I'm getting A's and B's now. So they see that passion, and she gets to experience that in middle school, which will set her up when she goes on to Peninsula High School and be successful as a learner. So the data attached to this right now. On the left here, you'll see our AVID elective ninth grade on track to graduate. That is 84% of our AVID ninth grade students. And then if you look at all of our Peninsula High School students, right now we only have AVID elective at Peninsula High School. They're also at 84%. So we have work to do. That's why we set goals. We have a baseline. This is based on semester 1 data, and our students are, midway now through semester 2, so we'll continue working with them. But there's work that we need to do with AVID and making sure that we are hitting all of our students and supporting them with their need, but also helping to tell them how important the statistic of ninth grade on track to graduate is to their trajectory of graduation. I had requested some data from AVID in support of this presentation and received it just yesterday. But they track a lot of that clearinghouse data for us to say what happens to our students after they leave our system and what happens to them once they do start to enroll in college. We do have 95% of our 2001-2002 seniors from Peninsula High School that were successfully on track to graduate and graduated. Of those 92%, 67% applied for college and got in. So all students who applied for college from that AVID elective as seniors, we're talking about 15 students, they all applied and got in. 67% applied and got in. And then of that all the students, 64 actually went and started coursework in their first fall of college this last fall. So we're getting there. So a little bit more data around what our AVID elective is. Again, for many of our schools, we're in the 8th year of AVID. In our middle schools, each one of those structures is a little bit different. So KPMS has 17 total students. That's one AVID elective period, and it's a combination of 7th and 8th graders. So the 7th graders will be in that cohort again with Miss Wieslander. They are hoping that next year they'll be able to run 2 sections and have a full section of 7th graders and a full section of 8th graders. At Harbor Ridge Middle School, we have very full group of 8th graders. There's 27 students that are in the AVID elective with Miss Circa, and they will prepare to go to Peninsula High School next year. Goodman is in our first year of implementation. They started with our 7th grade. So that they had 2 full years with their students. So they'll have a new 7th grade cohort next year. And then the students, this was just a portion of that class. There are 18 students in that class. They will be going up and have AVID elective for 8th grade again next year. And just a point of reality, those students have been in the AVID elective for 6 months with a teacher, Miss Amberlyn, who is still here. This is the first time she's ever taught this elective. She's never been an AVID teacher before. She went to training over the summer along with some of her administrators and colleagues, and she's learning along with her students. And so just that power of AVID, of how eloquent and put together, and I can tell you for certain those students put together that presentation. It wasn't Miss Amberlyn doing it for them, but that is that power and ownership of AVID, and makes a difference in just 6 months of implementation. High school, we have 125 students in 9th through 12th grade and a variety of elective teachers, and that has been a pretty robust. That enrollment ebbs and flows, and the pandemic, as much as like we have in anything else. Right now is season where we are, just like our middle schools told you, we're going out to electives and advisories and publicizing the value of AVID and trying to get a few more enrollments. So we're working through that as students start thinking about enrollment for next year. So with that, being new to AVID and spending this year, the last 6 months, really soaking it in and understanding what AVID means, we have a couple of priorities for the spring and then going into the summer. It's really important and powerful for an AVID teacher, especially teachers who have only been teaching AVID elective for, 6 months, but also only have that experience within their own classroom, to visit other AVID sites. And not all of our middle school AVID elective teachers have had that opportunity. So we're gonna go on a little bit of roadshow, visit our neighbors around the region, and just spend some time in AVID classrooms other than our own to learn and to get that pat on the back and that reinforcement what they're doing, but also to get some ideas. We also are doing, especially at the middle school, now that we have 3 AVID elective teachers, we're doing a lot of cross-district collaboration. So on those all-district Wednesday collaboration days, the AVID elective teachers and I are meeting, we're sharing ideas. There's a lot of support for Miss Amberlyn in her first year of implementation from the other 2 sites, and creating that connection of job-alike resources. As I said just a moment ago, we're focusing on enrollment. And then Summer Institute. Summer Institute is something that's come across to your approval for many years now. It's really the heart of AVID and really getting that focused training for both administrators, the AVID elective teachers, as well as other teachers in the district. This year, we are going to approach it a little bit differently. We are all, in all 4 of our sites, going to go to the same AVID training, and we're gonna go to Seattle. So we're gonna stay local, and we're all gonna do it together. We're gonna take a smaller group of individuals from each school, and we're really gonna focus on rebooting AVID, focusing on priorities, creating a mission and vision within Peninsula School District. What does AVID mean to us? What is that story we say district-wide, whether you're an AVID student at Goodman or Harbor Ridge or Peninsula High School? We're going to create some documentation, and we're going to create some resources and really tell that story district-wide. We're going to focus on bringing an administrator, our counselors, because they're a key piece to that AVID elective and student placement, as well as our AVID elective teacher and 1 teacher of their choice. So the schools get to choose that. All of this reboot and focusing on mission and vision gets into that priorities for next year. I'm going to skip down a little bit. You have these bullet points as well. But in the value of time, we do hope in the fall of 2024 to bring Kopachuk Middle School and Gig Harbor High School into the AVID school-wide and elective realm. So creating this focus next year on rebooting, branding, telling that story of mission and vision, and giving Kopachuk and Gig Harbor that opportunity to visit our sites, spend some time, will help them prepare to run the AVID elective in the 24-25 school year. This last slide, you heard it from the students. So this just is a couple voices from students from other schools about the impact of the AVID elective on their trajectory and their success in school. That is all from me, so I'll take questions.
So I would imagine that there's some students that need this that don't necessarily sign up for it. Are there some that are identified and kind of coaxed in to, yeah?
It's that tricky balance, and Goodman is more than welcome. I mean,
Yeah.
they have firsthand experience and they're here, so I don't
Yeah.
want to speak too much for them.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into AVID and being part of that AVID.
Right.
And it's not something that you want to volunteer a child to do. There
Right.
has to be some ownership by not just the child, but the family
Right.
in understanding what that commitment and what you're signing up for. And so it's really more about creating some purpose and helping the child understand why that's going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But we try not to volunteer students that they will be in the AVID elective because they have to want to be there. It's hard work, and it's not like taking, some other elective choices that they maybe have access to.
It almost seems like one of those classes that should be not an elective.
The rigor in the AVID elective could be,
Yeah.
rich. But I think our electives come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
And so.
Yeah, it seems like every student should have the ability to organize and to.
Absolutely. And that's the importance of those school-wide components.
Yeah.
And so that's why we can't just have the AVID elective alone. We have to, provide professional learning. I can speak for Goodman. Come on up. I can speak for Goodman. Carrie and her site team spend a lot of time every month educating their staff on different AVID strategies so that a science teacher can utilize those strategies, an English teacher can utilize those strategies.
Right.
But I'm going to let Carrie speak.
Hi. So we do have an AVID site team, and we have been at Goodman Middle School rolling out AVID strategies that are benefiting every student. So yes, we do have the focused AVID elective, which is a year-long course, which is another thing to consider and why counselors are important in this sort of this recruitment process. But we are implementing school-wide AVID language, AVID strategies. We are sharing with our peers, our colleagues, what we've done in our classroom practice and how it has worked. And so that is happening school-wide. And our goal is to become a school of distinction, an AVID school of distinction. And so as we are doing that, we are planning for all students really to take AVID,
Nice.
if that makes sense.
Nice. Thank you. Yes.
Just to touch on what Chuck said, I mentioned earlier, one of my children was in AVID when he was in middle school, and I appreciate your comment. It's a lot of commitment, and I remember him having weekly meetings with his counselor. He was highly capable, but he was in AVID because he wasn't organized, so he got to learn how to do his binders and putting all his papers together. And now in lots of lists, and so once he totally bought into the system, here he is in his younger 30s and still utilizing AVID skills that he learned, 20 years ago, which is pretty cool. So there is quite a bit of a commitment. I know when Dave Goodwin was at Peninsula High School a number of years ago, he kind of tried to get the AVID culture into Peninsula High School, and I know that there were Peninsula students like Dora, looking at Dan, but like Dora was not actually enrolled in AVID, but she was using AVID strategies and she really liked it. She was our student rep at the time. So I'm really happy to see, I've been a fan for AVID for years, and we've made mild progress in AVID with our school district to get it into more schools. I'm really hopeful that it will go over to Kopachuk And because it's nice that Goodman is doing it, but there's nowhere for them to go when they leave Goodman if we don't get it at Gig Harbor High School. So it'll be lost on them as a cohort if we don't do it. And so the only piece I want to ask is, I know that sort of like Henderson Bay years ago, they're doing great progress to get away from that stigma of Henderson Bay as the other school. I know years ago, that there was a somewhat of a stigma that Avid was, only kids that were struggling needed to be an Avid, but that's not the case. So what are we doing to make sure, because of the fact we only have like in the teens of students going to these schools that are in Avid, how do we encourage more kids to do it and not have there be a stigma as they're part of Avid, and to see the benefit of it?
That's something that I have seen the site teams. I actively participate in the Goodman and the Peninsula High School site team and going to their meetings, and they talk about that as a site team, about ways and strategies they can do to publicize and tell that story. But it's that education piece. It's the education piece for both the students and the families to publicize and tell that story, to break down some of those stigmas. I also know the Peninsula High School Avid 12th graders have talked about making videos and telling stories and having those pieces that can be used within their advisory periods, and to kind of open up the bridges to let them know what's going on. I think since it's an elective, it's an unknown. And I think it's all about how we tell that story and the education that we do with our families and our students to tell that story of, how Avid helps you and what the success. I also think the more we do it school-wide, then there's that story of, oh, these are Avid strategies. Okay, so you just have a whole, period. You have fifth period where you just focus on these strategies. That's kind of awesome. I could use that extra help. So we'll get there.
So I'm kind of connecting the dots here, because I'm thinking back now to my own daughter's experience in 4th grade, and I'm fairly confident she had a teacher that came, this was during COVID, she had a teacher that came in, and I'm fairly confident this teacher was an Avid teacher, because one of the things they drilled on were the binders, the agenda planners, and the backpacks, and this was in 4th grade.
Yeah.
And without a doubt, I can say that one piece alone of those strategies has set her up to be successful academically. And that was at a 4th grade level. And it was just that piece. And so, my wondering is, holy cow, like, let's get those organizational pieces starting a little bit younger. I mean, she never had, it wasn't the full package, but just hearing the students talk about those, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's where it came from. It had to have come from, and she's still doing that. But that was that one teacher.
Right.
And she never got it anywhere else. Right. So, I don't know, is that?
There are Avid elementary programs.
That
is a possibility. We are focusing on trying to become all Avid at secondary, because that will be, it's great to have that elementary, but we have to focus on that Avid secondary, and then we can look at those different options. Avid strategies are also really tied to the work that we're doing in Universal Design for Learning and just good pedagogical instruction. And so the more we can educate our teachers on pedagogy, and organization is one of those pieces as well, then all of that feeds up to what is specifically, Avid uses its own set of vocabulary, but it all ties together. There's crosswalks between UDL and Avid, so it's all tied pedagogically when you look back, with the teacher instruction side of it. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we are going to move on to item 7.2, our school improvement plans. We've got 5 schools this evening, so we're going to start with Pioneer Elementary. Stephanie and team is here, and we will. We're always so excited to hear about this. We will try to keep our questions brief so we can hopefully not make this be a 4-hour meeting, but thank you for coming and presenting tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us, School Board Superintendent Barr. Stephanie Streeter, the very proud principal of Pioneer.
And I'm Jen Wisner, the instructional coach for Pioneer.
I had to invite Jen because I'm just extremely proud of a lot of the work we've accomplished. I was actually reflecting tonight. I feel like it was just yesterday, but it was probably 5 years ago where I think I was here every week updating you on something related to Pioneer. So I kind of do miss that touch point to just share, just because we've had such a unique journey and a unique experience. So we're excited to share a little bit about where we are right now, where we're going, and some of the really cool things that we're doing. If I had my way, I told John that I would spend 9 minutes talking to you about this slide, because why not talk about the cool things kids are doing? But I will not, and we'll get to some of the other things as well. But what I really wanted to capture here was just really our values. When we launched Pioneer, we identified 5 core principles that we wanted to reflect who we are in our design, instructionally, in our design facilities, in who we are when we're making decisions for kids. And so those are reflected in those hexagons down at the bottom there. And they stand for learner agency, authentic learning, expanding our view of success of students. So students are more than one test score on one day, on one type of assessment. That idea of equity, for us, that looks at access to opportunity. Whatever that opportunity is for all students, that's what we're looking for. And then that last and final one, there's collaboration. So trying to find pictures that captured some of that thinking for you is really what I wanted to capture up there. If you look at the 2 kind of top center ones, those are pictures from our recent K1 PBL unit on space. The one on the left there is space station, or mission control that the K1s made. And they capitalized on using that mission control center during their choice time. And then on the right-hand side there is a wonder wall for our K1 students and all the things that they had questions about with space. And we use student curiosity, we use student questions to guide our PBL work that we're doing with that integration model.
We also have students up there who are doing a lot of integration, and that's been a real piece for us of being able to connect their learning outside of the classroom into our school garden, but also into their community, and to really have that focus on being a problem solver, right? Giving them a context for their learning, a way to be able to apply it so that it's not just the memorization of facts, but it really is getting them to make a difference in their learning and make a difference in their community too. And another big piece that we've worked on this last year is our systems pieces. So we have like our visual over there for multi-age. We've been working on communicating with families, like what does multi-age mean? What does this look like in the classroom? But what does this also look like on the playground with the kids interacting with their peer groups? And just the benefits that come with multi-age also.
So from the very beginning, we have big goals and aspirations to be a very solid project-based learning school where our units are developed around science standards, integrated with reading, writing, math when appropriate, although we do recognize, and we'll talk about math in a minute, that foundational skills in math a lot of times need to be taught in isolation. They're more challenging to be integrated. But we also do have a responsibility to our students to ensure that they can learn to read. And so both of those things can go hand in hand. We can have curious thinkers who are engaging in project-based learning while also learning explicit foundational skills to ensure that they are readers. So for our SIP goals, we focused on aligning to the strategic plan, and we're looking at our 3rd grade students. Obviously, we do 100% want all of our students to be reading at grade level by the end of 3rd grade, by the end of 2nd grade, by the end of kindergarten. Ideally, right? We're getting them there and we're moving them along. And that's a lofty goal. We're at last spring, we were at 53% of our 3rd graders. We're coming out of a pandemic. We're exploring a format of a test that is very new. And so it was a really good opportunity for us as a staff to learn about, what could we do differently? And Jen has worked really hard this year with the teachers to reflect on a lot of that data, a lot of the instructional practices, continuing to clean up our systems. So I shared for you up there just a couple different data pieces that we're looking at, because SBA alone is not one thing that we can take a look at. We need to look at our DIBELS assessments too. We need to be checking in on those benchmarks, on our progress monitoring. We need to be looking at our iReady scores. How are those correlating? What is that showing us? What is that classroom data telling us as well? And then one thing I'd love for Jen to share, and I'll do that on the next slide, is what we've done with the IABs, which is the interim Smarter Balanced Assessments this year, to help support our students and their future learning, and more importantly, I think inform us as educators how we're going to meet those needs. So some of the things we're doing around ELA, do you want to share a few?
Sure. We've really been looking again with our multi-age model and diving into the research that there's a lot of talk about creating continuums, right? Seeing our kids on this journey from being, in pre-K all the way up to 5th grade, 6th grade, right? So we've created this year some common writing continuums so that every kiddo can feel like they have a place in their learning. They understand where they're at, but they can also use this continuum to be able to say, okay, so what's on the next step? What do I need to add to my writing? What do I need to reflect on in order to jump to that next level? And so what this does is it really allows the kids to be the drivers in their learning so that it's not just the one teacher who's setting the goals. This child, these kids in our classroom can be continuously setting goals using these continuums. Again, just putting the kids in the driver's seat, right? The other piece that we've really been looking at is with our assessments that we have a lot of universal screeners that kind of give us that big picture dip as to where our kids are at, but we've really been working this year at Pioneer at funneling that information down of saying, okay, so we know that these kiddos are the ones that we're concerned about, but how do we link that to the instruction? How do we link that to the intervention, right? So we've been doing some more diagnostic assessments that kind of drill down a little bit deeper. We've been trying to track that data a lot more. On the bottom corner there, we have a trajectory that we use for DIBELS now, where we can continuously, every single month, every few weeks, we can map and see where are kids at. Are they still on that trajectory, working towards that grade level standard? It's something that's been shared with families even, so that they can kind of get that big picture of, hey, my kiddo, I'm concerned about them. They started below grade level. We can show them, hey, but look, they're on that path that by the end of the year, they could meet grade level standards. So again, it just gives us a visual and a tracking device, but it's also one that's easily communicated to families too. And then we also have a lot of mapping that we've done K-5. So again, we had the first 2 years, we started building our units, we started, deciding what we were teaching. There was some overlap we noticed. So this year's been kind of that year of refining where we've looked to see, okay, so where does our standard end in kindergarten and first grade, and where should second and third grade pick up? How can we be intentional with overlap if we notice that there are concepts that are harder that the kids just need some repetition with? How can we create units that build intentionally? So we've been putting a lot of that work in there and just kind of going back to our units and refining so that they are very intentional, that they progress nicely, so that kids can find themselves and be those drivers in their learning, and so that we are continuously collecting that data that helps us to drive our instruction.
And there's other things articulated there, like our PLC time, how we use that time to collaborate, as Jen shared, and then just being pretty strategic about strategic about our master schedule. I feel fortunate that we have a pretty controlled enrollment, and so we are able to kind of look ahead from year to year and be very clear about what times are going to be our instructional blocks. What is that going to look like? How do we capitalize on the resources we have to really strengthen those instructional blocks? So thank you for sharing. Math. We would not be a STEAM school if we didn't have the M for math, and I have a red star on that is because I will transparently say that has not yet been our focus yet, as we are continuing to build our program. This is year 3, only year 2 in person, and so we still have some work to grow in math. Again, following the strategic plan, our goal is 100% proficiency per the SBA by the end of 5th grade, and so we need to be looking at lots of measures related to that to get us to that goal. So we've got a steep goal this year. Our 5th graders that are now currently 6th graders, 53% of them had passed the SBA last spring. We're hoping that through our efforts and our work this year, 75% of those students will be there. Is it to 100% yet? No, it is not. But our hope would be through continued effort, learning, and growing as professionals ourselves, continuing to do the data dives that we are doing, reflecting on our own practice, we'll continue to get our students there by the end of our strategic plan goals of 2026. Again, like with reading, we can't just use one measure, and so I have also provided for you our iReady diagnostic, and that's holistically looking at our students, but then we are also using, again, IABs to help us kind of look at where are our students right now, and then those classroom-based assessments and having conversations about, gosh, let's look at item number 5. A lot of our students really missed item number 5. Why? Is it how it's written? Is it a concept that they're understanding? What is that miscue that they're struggling with? And then how do we need to modify our instruction with that? So some of the things that we're doing, oops, I went the wrong way. Some of the things that we're doing right now in math, again, is that focused collaboration time. An intentional master schedule where all of our grades, K-5, have a 60-minute math block. We have differentiated small groups throughout that where teachers are polling students based on need to kind of get them intensive support. We are working on some professional development. Jen, do you want to share what you're doing actually this coming Wednesday?
Yeah, we're going to be taking our data from our IAB that we're taking currently this week, and we're going to be, again, kind of drilling down to say, okay, this is more of a global view. How do we take this to a kid-by-kid level? We have an activity that we're going to be going through where the teachers will look at a variety of resources that they could use in order to do some math interviews, to be able to do some more cognitive-based mathematics tasks, so that teachers can get an idea of, like, these kids have this common deficit. We're going to work towards filling that hole, and we will also be able to look at, like, what are some school-wide systems that we can put into place. With ELA, we found the idea that our kids are having trouble understanding what's required of them of a short answer response type question. And so we put into effect an acronym for the kids to be able to use and practice in order to create those solid paragraphs that answer questions. The same type of thinking is what we're going to be doing with math. We have a 3 reads protocol that we're going to be able to put into place in order to help kiddos with the questions that we find that they're having the most difficulty with. So we're looking both kind of at that individual student level to be able to set some goals, but also at that, what can we do school-wide to create that consistent structure for them.
And it's been kind of great being where we are right now because we're feeling pretty good in that ELA area. Not that we're perfect. We're going to continue to strengthen and revise. We'll be year 2 for the second time next year, so there will be some revision. But really doing a lot of professional learning and conversation between Jen and myself and our leadership team in terms of how do we already start launching that focus of math for next year. So it's a fun spot to be right now. But that is kind of our focus where we're working. We have cell goals as well, but I was told 2 goals tonight, so we're going to focus on those 2, and we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
2 questions. One for the ELA. I liked that you had that trajectory that you're mapping, and I'm trying to zoom in because I can't quite read it. But so what are your like plot points on there? I mean, I know there's obviously the score, but like
Yes.
progress monitoring and things like that.
Dibbles has what they call cut scores. So they say, like, hey, coming in the fall, kids should be here. And then they have like a midpoint goal and they have an end of the year goal. So I took the fall goal and I took the end of the year goal saying, I love the midpoint goal. That's a really nice indicator, but really we want our kids to get to that end and we want to make sure that we can see. So what the teachers do is the line is solid on there of where they should have hypothetically started and where they should end. But the teachers collect that first sample of data in the fall and they mark where are the kids actually. And we draw another line that shows this individual student's path. Then if they're starting below, then great, this is what they can do. If they're above, hey, maybe they could work towards the next year's standards, words per minute, and they can work above.
And I guess the follow-on is so that that delta under that curve, if you will. I mean, I think that then becomes really the challenge, right? Because for each child that could be a different could look differently, right? So
yes, but we're also looking to kind of group them. So it's like these kids have this common skill that they need to work on.
Okay.
And then we're able to plot to make sure that they're getting there. We actually had quite a few happy surprises where it's like, oh, this kiddo's behind, but I know that he's working so hard. And as soon as we plotted it on the graph, we were able to see he's actually making progress at the amount that he would need to make each month in order to reach grade level by the end of the year.
but had maybe missed that mid-year benchmarking by 3 words. So it was validating for our teachers for sure. And we've been using it too with our student support team, student care team, to help us figure out how do we set goals to determine if an intervention is working. If you can imagine a student who is significantly below grade level in reading fluency, if they need to get to, I think, the end of 2nd grade, don't quote me on this, actually, I'm not going to quote a grade. Pretend the end of the year standard is 85 and a student started the year at 32. That's a huge growth to make, right? So if we're looking at what would an average typical developing student, how do we then set those benchmarks? How do we set those goals so that we're closing that gap? We may not get that student to a grade level at the end of that year, but we are making that progress to close that gap so that by the time they're moving out of our system in 5th grade, they are reading at grade level.
Thanks. And then second one on math, I feel like I kind of said this a few times, but just putting in another plug with all the strategies around math. The fact that bringing parents along with those is so important because you're not teaching math the way we learned it. And I don't know how many times I've tried to help my child and got told I was doing it wrong. So if there's anywhere in that with all of the things that you're doing to just those quick little really 3-minute videos of like, hey, this is how we're actually approaching this problem, would be fantastic. Cause
that's a great suggestion.
Yeah, anyway, thanks.
Thank you.
I just have one point, because you're in a unique position not being a feeder school to other, to middle schools. And what we found in our last SIP presentation was that the elementary schools and the middle schools weren't necessarily communicating so well on what skills we're seeing missing coming into 6th grade. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity for you still to partner, we've got a middle school here, with middle schools so that you can get that information about what gaps they're seeing in 6th grade to kind of help drive your 4th and 5th grade years as well.
Yeah, great suggestion. I do believe there is some communication already starting to occur. The district has initiated that collaboration between 5th grade teachers and 6th grade teachers, so we've been involved in that. I would say we've reached out already this year. Last year was kind of took us by surprise, right? Like, oh, wait a second, we're sending kids on. But this year I feel like we've been a little bit more proactive, just even how we're doing our connection meetings, making sure that there's some consistency there so all kids are getting similar experiences. We are very intentional, like this time of probably about March, April through the end of the year, where we're taking our groups of students who are going into similar feeder middle schools and providing them experiences and opportunities so that they're bonding and connecting. They have their pioneer family, and then these are your people that you're going to be transitioning to middle school with too. So we're very well aware of those dynamics and wanting to make that as smooth as possible.
Yep, I got a couple. Well, first, thank you for your presentation. It was very well done. Thank you. To be fair, I'll just say the same thing to you and ask you the same questions I did to the other elementary school folks that were here in the previous school districts or school board meetings. I know that we are coming out of a post-pandemic. Obviously, that we just are just coming out with our strategic plan, and we're starting to do everything according with our new strategic plan, and that we're looking at, because we don't really have cohort data, this is year 0 for our strategic plan going forward. And traditionally, a strategic plan has goals, year-over-year growth goals. So maybe our 3rd grade reading post-pandemic, our current 3rd graders may not hit that 100%. Okay, so some, for obvious reasons, coming out of post-pandemic. So one of the questions I asked the others was, what are you doing to identify our kindergartners, our 1st graders, and our 2nd graders, specifically around reading, to identify those students early? And I asked the same question at the last board meeting about our transitional kindergarten. What are we doing to identify them even earlier, before they even get into kindergarten? So what are you doing to work to identify your earliest learners so that this being year 1, our kindergartners will hit that goal in third grade, first graders and so forth. So I'll ask you the same question.
Yeah, we have 168 K1 students over 8 classrooms in our multi-age model, and our K1 classroom teachers progress monitor in all their data. So they're progress monitoring in letter name fluency, phonemic awareness, not to oral reading fluency yet, but a lot of those pre-reading skills, and they're progress monitoring monthly, and they're using that data to then determine what kind of supports are these students needing. It's in a beautiful color-coded Google Doc that I pull up as we're talking in our admin meetings, as we're talking in our instructional meetings, as we're talking in our leadership meetings about like where are the gaps we're seeing. Is it in one particular classroom? Is it one in particular area? So using that data to inform how we're going to move forward. And then I would say a lot of the work Jen's been doing to support our teachers with that deeper dive into data. So we have a lot of that big picture view. That's not good enough. You know, we are not okay with having 35% of our students or 40% of our students not yet to target. But we need to determine why is that. Is this a fluency issue? They have their decoding skills, their phonics are solid. That intervention is going to look very different than a student who doesn't have their phonics solid. So we need to take that surface level data and we need to dive deeper into that. And we've been doing a lot of work this year in professional development on what are those tools that we have available to us, what does that look like, and so then we're taking that information that we're learning about our students and making action plans. In fact, I had a K1 teacher come to me the other day and she goes, we're preparing for spring conferences, but all of my children are above grade level. And I was like, that's a really great problem to have. So let's talk further about that.
Okay, your colleagues at the other elementary schools that have done their SIP plans so far have all come with, here we are with our third graders currently somewhere in the mid-50s to 60% range, which unfortunately makes sense coming out of a pandemic, and a lot of these kids were remote learners with parents working, and we know the stories behind that. And for your goal to be 84, 88% by the end of this school year, which is I like the mid 80 number. That's way better, and that's we really appreciate that. And that's why I'm asking to make sure that our current second graders, so that next year, I don't know what our year-over-year growth goals are for the strategic plan, but let's just say it's 5% year-over-year growth. Then we're at the 90 next year, and we're certainly, as we get closer to that 100, that 5% growth goal year over year is going to get smaller. Yeah. So we're not going to go from 60 to 80 in 1 year. It might be, so I'm well aware of that, so as long as we're making progress towards that, so that when our first graders and kindergartners get to third grade, we're closer to that 100%. So when James Canterwine was here a couple board meetings ago, we asked him a lot of questions about the data. And he and Chris worked really hard to get all these great data models put together. And one of the things he pointed out was that, OSPI data is all over the map. So there's OSPI data that's pulled from 2018-19 school year, 2019-21 school years. It's all over the map, where we have a little bit more current data. So, and that's one of the questions we were asking him and Chris to work on, so that if we needed it, we can go out there and we can find where we are as a school district and drill down to where we are currently, not where OSPI says we are. But I will, can happily report that just being here tonight while you were giving your presentation, I did do an overall review of school districts in Pierce County at OSPI, and we're above all of them, so I'm really happy about that. So, so that's all I had. Thank you.
Well, and I appreciate you saying that, David. I do feel it's very intentional and purposeful on our SIP plan to ensure that we're breaking it down, because yes, we take responsibility for all our students K-5. They're all our students, whether I'm a first grade teacher, whether I'm a third grade teacher or a fifth, they're all my kids, and I have a responsibility ensuring that we're getting them to where they need to be successful. So we have on our comprehensive SIP plan, we've broken it down by grade bands to start to show, like, if we're here now, this is where we want to be at the end, so that this overarching goal is met at the end of the strategic plan. And then I also have data spreadsheets that are helping me to track like cohort data. I think that's really important, right? If my goal at the end of 5th grade is to have 100% of my 5th graders at proficiency, I want to see growth from 3rd to 4th grade. I want to see growth from 4th to 5th grade, because that cohort of students matters, in my opinion, a little bit more than different kids year after year. And so just looking at both sets of data to help us inform is really important, and those systems district-wide are value added.
And I do have one question, because there is an A in your school.
There is an A.
STEAM,
Yeah.
and you have an arts, a board that loves the arts. The arts, because your STEAM school is not one of the tracked core areas from OSPI. So what is Pioneer doing as far as, do you have any kind of year-over-year growth goals for your arts piece of the school?
That's a great question. We have not yet dove into the A in that specific of a term. I mean, we have big dreams. We're finding grants all the time to figure out how we can enhance our program to make sure that the T is represented, that the E is represented, that the S is represented, that the A is represented. You know, we're seeking out those opportunities, but we haven't established goals yet. I would say if you come talk to my students, they're going to say innovation or art and tinkering is their absolute favorite most time of day. I get to be creative. I get to explore my curiosities. I feel seen, heard, and cared for in those spaces. And so capitalizing on the passion of those educators is really important too. And a lot of it is just integrated too. You know, whatever the unit is, there's a picture up there of K1s on the far left corner. They're making an art project related to, I can't remember which unit that was, but it's very intentional in terms of how do we use the arts as an expressive tool to show kind of what we're learning. But, and I have a fantastic music teacher, and I know that she has great ambitions and aspirations for what could be in terms of the music program as well. But good idea.
If I could just chime in on that note of like, I think the goal of our arts teachers really has been that integration piece, and that's why it is a little bit more invisible. The kiddo who's on the right there, she's using the skills that she's learned in our art and tinkering class with our cardboard construction to be able to build a roller coaster to then study force and motion. And so for us, it's kind of like that initial access point for our kiddos. Same thing with our innovation teacher, where it's like we could take the time to teach the skills that the kids need to be able to apply all the learning and to get those higher scores and understand why they're working towards those scores in the other subject areas.
Thank you.
Okay, next up we have our team from Discovery.
Hi, good evening, and I am so fortunate to get to go after Pioneer because there is just so many similarities in the information that we have too, and I think that speaks really well actually to a lot of the systemic systems that we have in place, because as they were sharing their intervention plans and those systems they have set up of benchmarks and monitoring of student progress, I'm like, oh, we do that too, we do that too, we do that too, and we did not sit down to make sure that we were all doing the same thing. So it's really exciting to hear that. I want to thank you for having us here tonight. I also want to thank you for approving that consent agenda tonight, because I believe that was the final vote for doors was in there for the final item for us. So thank you very much. So we're excited to have doors coming in this summer at Discovery. So it'll be a totally different place. I'm Delana Halliday, the principal. I should introduce myself. And with me I have.
I am Abby Davis. I am the lap reading specialist.
And this has been, talking of change, lots of changes at Discovery in the last 4 years. And in preparation for this, I looked at our staffing and realized that we have right now, out of 55 staff members, 38 of them started with us since the pandemic. So we've had quite a shift, quite a culture shift. It's a new, different place to be than it was 4 years ago. So with the opening of the new schools, going from 650 students to 320, it's been quite a change. It's been wonderful. It's been great to go through this journey with the staff there and the families in the community. All right, let's get going on this. Okay, there we go, that one. All right, so I chose these images here because one of the great things about Discovery is that we are a community of learners who celebrates learning in everybody around us. That means our students, our staff, and our families. We all want to learn and grow together. So the pictures across the bottom, we, as you know, Purdy and Mentor Creek and Discovery went out for the Arts Impact Grant we went out for 2 grants, one from the Gig Harbor Arts Commission and another one from the Washington Arts Commission, right. And through that we got Arts Impact Training. And out of that, one of the things that our BLT decided, our building leadership team decided to use some of our building funds to also bring in Sabian Pleasant, who works with Arts Impact, to do some extra dance experiences for our students and our families. So this was in cooperation with our VPO. So you'll see the class being offered there and some very excited kindergartners getting ready to move. And then we did a school-wide activity outside. Thank goodness it was a sunny day. And then we had a family night where we invited the families to come in, learning about moving our bodies and math and shadowing. It was a really fabulous event. It is great to have a VPO that this year in particular has valued the importance of bringing the families back into the school. They told me, nope, I keep saying, well, we could charge something. Nope, we're not charging. We want families in, we want them here. And that has helped just really boost our community up more and more. So to have families involved, so that has been a great thing. We also, for our first year of communities and schools involvement in our building and having our first coordinator, that has been amazing. So Alex McCauley is our site coordinator. We already have him fully stocked at, I think it's 35 students that he is helping out on his caseload already. And we have the tutoring program going with another 10, 15 students after school also. But one of the great things about partnering with them is that they can do things that we might not be able to do quite so well with the constraints of time and our resources. And one of the great things that Alex has done is reach out to Gig Harbor High School and to Henderson Bay. And so we have had students from both of the schools come over and work with our students with dance projects, leadership, and then we also have the Teacher Academy at Discovery. And so all of these programs just creates that environment, again, where learning is for all of us and we're all together. So another great program for us. We also have a great partnership with Comprehensive Life Resources, which provides therapy for our students on site, on campus. This means parents don't have to take their student out of school into Tacoma for intake or something like that. It's right here with us. Reduces on the time students are pulled out of school, increases their academic time while supporting their social emotional needs. So let's get into this. Now, if you looked at my school improvement plan, it's huge, it's big. It's like 18 pages long because it's a living, breathing document for us. We keep adding information to it as we go and updating the actual document. So when we developed this plan, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, the issue of growth became vital as we developed this plan because we looked at our scores in the spring and it was very dispiriting. We had students who weren't at grade level. We worked so hard and they weren't at grade level. Thank goodness we had Abby Davis with us because she really started pulling those numbers and said, no, wait, hang on. These students grew, after I wrote it down because I want to make sure I get it right, 15 to 20 months growth in 1 year, in 10 months. And already this year, as we look at it with that growth perspective, we have quite a few students who are already at 9 and 10 months growth in 4 months. So as Stephanie mentioned earlier, sometimes we have kids who are not quite in the green. They're not quite at grade level, but boy, they have grown so much and we're so proud of them. And that's due to the hard work of our teachers and our parents, the intervention steps the teachers are taking to support every student and find those discrete skills the students need to give them that extra boost. So it's been a great project, great thing to work through with our staff. I'm gonna go ahead and let Abby come up and talk some more.
So we spent quite a bit of time as a staff working together
to develop our plans for what we're going to do with these students. As Delana said, we last spring had to pause for a moment and say, you could feel the disappointment in teachers and looking at the spring data. They were really excited to see what it was going to be like, and then we're seeing that group of students that aren't moving the way that we would want them to move. We're still seeing this large chunk of students in the red, but trying to look at what we can celebrate and the growth that we do see, and thinking about the educational impact that the last 2.5 years brought to us. So trying to find those small celebrations and looking at what we're doing and what we can do differently, and so that's why we really focused on growth. So this year we've spent a lot of time and a lot of professional development as a staff, looking at the district's reading pathways document and talking a lot about Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction and which students are at those levels and the resources that we have. So we've spent a lot of time talking about how we need to approach our Tier 1 instruction, that 90-minute literacy block, what it should look like, how we can differentiate instruction within that block to meet the needs of students, because interventions are not and should not just be taking place at Tier 2 and Tier 3 outside of the classroom. They're taking place within the classroom as well. So really collaborating, working together to, as you heard Pioneer mentioning, digging deeper into what the needs of the individual students are, looking beyond just our DIBELS data and our iReady data to find exactly what the needs of those students are so that we can have groupings for what each individual student needs and really intentionally intervene in their instruction. So we are having a 90-minute literacy block, kindergarten through 3rd grade. The teachers are teaching using ECRI and Reading Wonders as their core instruction, and 4-5 is using Reading Wonders. And we're progress monitoring monthly to track progress and meeting frequently and collaborating to regroup students as needed. For Tiers 2 and 3, we're I'm teaming a lot with teachers to look at the data and see how we can work together to make these groupings, and like I said, make sure that we're giving the students what they need, and looking at a grade level as a whole group of students. They're all our students, and how can we utilize all of our resources to give them what they need. We're using ECRI again there. We're using Haggerty for phonemic awareness instruction, and a lot of the new resources that we've gained as a district with Phonics for Reading and Rewards and Read Live and all of these different resources that we have there. We've also been doing some professional development, BLT approved training for primary grade teachers for letters, so kind of increasing their knowledge of early literacy skills and kind of that science of reading and building on those foundational skills. It's not a curriculum, it's learning about best practices and how to assess and use those assessments to make sure we're teaching students what they need and when they need it.
For our second goal this evening, we chose to talk about our SEL goal because we wanted to focus on growth mindset from the Panorama data. So when we looked at our Panorama data, we saw some areas that were, a little low, and the reason growth mindset really stood out to us is because it dropped lower than any of the others faster. Like, the others were pretty good. The other areas were pretty strong in. And even that area is not extraordinarily of concern, it was just of the most concern. And the goal is focused on 3rd through 5th grade, but especially as we looked at the data, we knew we can't start talking about growth mindset just for 3rd through 5th grade. So we have a school-wide plan that supports using concepts and ideas of growth mindset, including parent education, and everything from using the curriculum that we already have in place with Second Step and a commitment to do that, up to doing in our more Tier 2, into the more Tier 2 and 3 sections where it becomes much more individualized, and even in our resource room, they have daily and weekly lessons that infuse in the ideas of growth mindset. Also in that area, we recognize that arts is a great way for growth mindset to be pursued and understood. And so with that, our BLT approved purchasing Arts for the Brain and Mind for any member of the staff who'd like to join a book study on that, which over half of them are doing. So it's been a wonderful adventure again with them to go through that. So we use panorama data and then records of lesson completion and then anecdotal evidence, because it's a little harder to assess some of these soft skills in students. So, but it has been great to see it growing throughout the building. Well, I think that's officially all I really have. Like I said, Stephanie covered a lot, but what questions would you like me to answer?
Just about, actually right here on this slide, how do you determine tiers for SEL?
Oh, thank you for saying that. We have a couple different ways of doing that. So we have the CIRCE data, and then we also, in Panorama, we have data on how students did, because the questions around SEL in Panorama, there's not just one question, there's multiple in the area of growth mindset. So then we can look at those and see how they play out, and then see the student scored into a higher need area. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And also sometimes students have IEPs actually specifically around this type of executive function support. So we'll find it.
What is one, in your earlier slide about reading, it said your growth, you want them to advance one performance level. What is a performance level?
Thank you. So in DIBELS and iReady, there are different performance levels, and this was specifically looking at DIBELS, where we have intensive, strategic, core, and core plus. And so our goal would be to move them up a level, even if that, because some of our strategic, some of those intensive are really low intensive. Getting them to strategic is on target. It's that aim goal for them.
Okay, because the reason I'm asking it is because so many people put an emphasis on OSPI because they're the ones that track statewide data. You know, how would that correlate one performance level to percentage improvement? So how could we go from 55%, I'm just making this number up, 55% reading to 65% reading? Would improving one performance level per grade, would that get us 10% growth?
iReady often correlates to it. DIBELS, the stages don't quite correlate quite as much, but also you'll see in the school improvement plan, the full one, on the last few pages, I do have the goals laid out over the next, until 2026, have us landing at 100. I took those goals, compared to them where we are now, and then I even broke those goals down even more discreetly to have goals for us throughout the year.
Okay,
So-
yeah, just because as a board, we have to look at the data.
Yep.
And it's easier for at least for me, looking at cohorts and see year-over-year percentage growth versus, that's why I wonder what's a performance level and how would that cross over to percentage growth? I got a couple more, but can you define what is growth mindset? What's your definition of growth mindset?
Sure, absolutely. Growth mindset often entails the idea that we are capable of changing a lot of things about ourselves. We're capable of growing in ways, and we can learn and we can do hard things. A fixed mindset says something like, my intelligence, my skills are where they are right now, and I can't improve and grow from that point. And growth mindset says, actually, there's a lot of different ways we can learn and grow. And so find your strengths and let's continue blossoming in those directions. It's challenging for a lot of students when they look at the world and go, this is just so hard, and I don't think I can do it. And then we want them to shift over to, this is so hard, I don't know how to do it yet. It's a very simple word, but that word yet opens it up and makes it a possibility. So that's just an example of kind of the growth mindset shift.
Okay, so a good other word for me for that would be grit.
It's similar. Grit is actually assessed differently in Panorama. So grit is the ability to persevere through challenges and explore alternatives, whereas growth mindset has a little more to do with this internalized process of considering what you can do.
Right, but I would think if you can do better, improve your growth mindset, you automatically should be able to improve your grit.
One would definitely hope so.
Okay.
And we've had grit as our goal in the past, actually. And so this year we shifted over to growth mindset from grit.
Okay, so the way, I did look at your other thing that you sent us, your plan.
Yeah.
You know, hope that's okay.
That's
I
fine.
will say, you know, you said, here's what percentage of our students are below grade level, which I'm not used to seeing that.
Mhm.
So I just want to say that the other side of that, your third grade, you have 65% at or above grade level. So I want to commend you for that, because
Thank you.
you're one of the elementary schools that's in the mid-60s. So great job on that. And is it okay for me to ask you a math question?
Uh-oh, did I mix up a formula?
No, you don't. I mean, it's just a general question.
Oh, go for it. Please. Oh,
I mean-
about the math goal. I'm like, oh no, did I mess
No,
up
no,
this
no,
table
no,
on my
no,
spreadsheet?
no.
Oh, I pride myself on those.
in the presentation.
Yes,
right?
please, go ahead, yes.
Sorry, I'm just doing my due diligence. So looking at your math, where your math scholars are, your youngsters right now, where they sit currently below reading level or below grade level in math. And I would say the math, obviously, most of the elementary schools that have come to us so far have been well below grade level in math, obviously, because that's more challenging, especially post-pandemic.
Yep.
So similar question that I asked Stephanie is regarding reading for your first, second, and third graders who are all in the 70s below grade level, meaning they're in their 30s at grade level. What's going to be your plan to get year-over-year growth so that when our fifth graders, which they're actually at 56%, which is, you know, higher, what do you see your plan? And if you want to speak for everyone, if you have an idea to get those cohorts, the first, second, third, so when they leave fifth grade and head over to middle school, and we've been hearing plenty recently about what goes on in a kid's mind once they get to middle school. What are we going to do to make sure our younger learners that are first, second, and third coming out of a pandemic are ready when they leave your school to go to middle school?
Well, one of the first things I want to point out is that table depicts specifically numbers and operations. And so if you look at our overall growth in math in general, there's also some really great strengths in other areas. We chose this area because we knew it was foundational and something that we needed a lot of help and support in. So thank you for recognizing that it is something that we do need to work on. So similar to what we do in reading, many of our grade levels they look at the data and they see what are the particular strand areas and what are the stuck points. Where are students getting stuck in those areas? Because we want to know every student by skill. We want to know specifically what each little area is that these students need to work on. And then out of that, they create small groups. They have intervention groups in class. And if it's a big enough group, they do cross groups inside their grade level. So we really are trying to dive into the data. That's why this thing is so messy and so big, is because it is living for us. It's something we actually use to consider what we're going to do next for our students. So small grouping by skill.
And I wouldn't, and that's why I said I wasn't picking on Discovery. I mean, everyone's in the same boat. I was just curious what your thoughts are, because, you know, when we hear kids are struggling in reading, having someone sit down with them and read, whether it's the Million Minutes or whatever we're doing, reading with them one-on-one really helps improve reading for most kids. I was just curious what you would do for math.
We have some great things happening around Math Talk and the UDL strategies to make math more accessible. I have so many pictures of math strategies that are up in the classrooms around the building, of evidence of just the great ways that teachers are talking about math with students and making it infused throughout the day of activities. So that's a big thing, but when it comes to those smaller, like, discrete skills, we focus on those too. Those grade level meetings are very valuable.
Thank you.
Just two quick questions. The last slide, what does second step refer to?
Second step is the district adopted social emotional learning curriculum.
Okay, I probably should know that. And the weekly small groups, do all students eventually encounter a counselor in a small group, or is it identified students that are put into small groups?
Identified students, and yes, just identified.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. That was great. Like David said, I do appreciate that you identified where the where you are below grade level.
Mhm.
And it's not that you're focusing on the negative, but it just for understanding where you need to go, that's really helpful.
And actually, if I can, there's another reason for that. And it
Mhm.
has to do, again, this is a document that we use as a staff. That's the way it's reported in iReady. So it's just easier for us to be able to translate that information as we look at it and go through it. So it's because it's practical.
Okay.
One of the reasons, yeah.
Okay.
So.
And the other thing that kind of stood out to me was how you know, within your growth mindset goal, you know, the use and the infusion of arts in helping support that, because I really think you're onto something there with the using arts as illustrative of what a growth mindset really means, because I think particularly in something like a drawing skill, that is such a thing that kids and adults will say, you're either born with it or you're not, right? And, you know, in my professional practice, I can't tell you how wrong that is, that it is 100% a teachable skill. It's about seeing, it's about, you know, motor skill, it's about how you look at something, and they are step by step by step different strategies you can learn. And so if you can use that as an example, I think that's could be really powerful, because that's such a common fixed mindset assumption that you either are born learning how to draw or you're not.
Right, and that's part of it. We want kids to go from, I'm not good at, I'm gonna use drawing for continuous, because exactly right. I'm not good at drawing. I'm not an artist. We want them to find out I can do this. And then if they're then having that self-talk about math, I'm not good at math. I'm not a mathematician, but you weren't an artist. You weren't good at drawing, and look how much you've grown. Exactly. Yes, thank you for saying that. Makes me very happy. Thank you. Yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to Harbor Heights.
Well, good evening, Superintendent Barr and Board of Directors. My name is Allie Shepard. I'm the proud principal of Harbor Heights Elementary, and I'm here with our Dean of Students, Kelsey Brookman. And it is our pleasure to speak to you about some of the amazing things happening at Harbor Heights. This is my second year as the principal at Harbor Heights, so I did start during the pandemic. So for all intents and purposes, this really feels more like year one. And so this year the focus has been on connecting and calibrating and building our systems and structures at Harbor Heights in response to some of the challenges from the pandemic and that disrupted learning, and being intentionally mindful as we build our SIP plan to be focusing on the district strategic plan and our work daily at Harbor Heights. So our orcas, oh, sorry, I forgot I'm the clicker. Sorry. Okay, our orcas are amazing. So we have TK at our school. It's our second year having our transitional kindergartners, and the second year has been just as much fun as the first. And so we are just really fortunate at Harbor Heights to have a long-standing connection with the Communities and Schools program. Although we have a new director this year, or a new coordinator, site coordinator. She actually was a paraeducator at our school last year, and when the position became open, she said, this is my dream job. So we are so blessed. She works, I think her caseload now is like 55 students. And so whether that's accessing food in the backpack program, clothing and shoes, reading support during the day, friendship groups, lunch bunches. She has a little cute social group called the Harbor Heights Cafe, and they're learning some basic cooking skills. So we are just really blessed with her. And then we have the after school reading program on Tuesdays, Tutors with Tales, and we serve about 30 students after school on Tuesdays with community mentors and reading. And so we just have a really great partnership with Communities and Schools. It's a joy at our building. You can hear singing again. They're singing in the classrooms, singing in the classrooms and singing in the music classroom, which is right at the center of our school. So, it's been great. We had our first music performance last month. Our little kindergartners and first graders were singing for their families, and it was amazing. We have a second and third grade music performance coming up this month, and then fourth and fifth next month in April. We have a strong and a dedicated group of volunteer parents, our VPO. We're a VPO school. They recently sponsored our STEM night. It was a blast. There was about 200 students and their families working through STEM explorations in our commons. They've also sponsored school dances. We had one in the fall, and now we have another one coming up in the spring. They also sponsor Girls on the Run, STEM Snapology, and right now we are in the midst of hosting the Tacoma Youth Theater for a music production that will be happening at the end of the month for an enrichment. I'm also going to introduce Kelsey Brookman, our Dean of Students, to speak directly to this slide and our value as an inclusive community at Harbor Heights.
So this year we've been really, I'm sorry, I'm not a podium person, so I'm just gonna be over here. But this year we've really focused on how we can be more inclusive and have that culture of belonging. It's a really big focus for here at Harbor Heights. And just two areas I'd love to speak to is our library. We really looked at our library and the text we had available and thought, whose voices and which stories are we not hearing and are not represented in our library, and how can we start adding those texts to our library to represent who we are at Harbor Heights. And the other very exciting opportunity that we had, again, sponsored by our incredible VPO, were our communication boards that came to our playground this year. And these were designed in partnership with our SLP, our OT, our PT, our incredible options and resource program to really design a communication board that was unique to Harbor Heights with our playground language specific, and also with the icons that represent some of the talkers that our students use across our campus. I had the really amazing, our SLP is Liz Comstock, she's incredible, and her and I were able to go and visit every classroom and really train and model and work with the students on how to use these communication boards appropriately and effectively on the playground. We have 3 posted on our playground, and it has been so incredible to see our students engaging with one another using the communication boards. And what I will say are these communication boards are not just benefiting our nonverbal students, but also our students who may have problems with regulation or just need a visual to help bridge that gap in communication. And what was a really exciting outcome from this is not only are our students engaging with maybe a student they wouldn't have engaged with before and inviting them to play, but this has also lessened the anxiety across our classrooms on using communication devices and engaging with students with communication devices. And so I'm just really proud of our orcas and excited about this opportunity, and I love seeing them use these boards across our campus.
Thanks, Kelsey. Before I focus on our first goal we're going to speak to tonight, which is an academic goal, I do just want to reiterate that we are working to foster cohesion around the strategic plan. And so while you'll see the 3rd grade data emphasized on our slide, when you look into our SIP plan, you'll notice that there are fluency goals and accuracy goals for each grade level. But given the focus on 3rd grade in our strategic plan, I thought it would be great to highlight that tonight. So that is on this next slide. So looking at our action plan, of course, just like you've heard my colleagues discuss ECRI, we have ECRI implementation in our grade K-3 classrooms, a 90-minute literacy block in all of our classrooms, and then a 30-minute win what I need block. Uninterrupted, focused, and targeted with supports for students and what they need. Whether they're working on accuracy or fluency or comprehension, our students are getting the opportunity to practice that skill. And we are also DIBELS progress monitoring and looking at that data frequently in our RTI, response intervention, reading meetings with our grade level teams. I want to highlight, this is the iReady growth for our whole school on the top slide. You'll notice that students grew from 48% in Tier 1 to 68% in Tier 1, also lowering the amount of students that need intensive intervention from winter to spring, and intentionally highlighting for you our 3rd grade data. While our 3rd grade winter's DIBEL data is at 71.2%, it was the same in the fall. But I want you to know that the growth students have to make to maintain their skills on DIBELS is intense. And we're so proud of our students and our amazing 3rd grade team. When you look at the 3rd grade iReady winter data, 88% of our students are in the core. And again, our whole school went from 48 to 68% in core instruction for reading. I also want to make mention that recently Kelsey and our counselor have been working with the grade 3-5 staff to look at the IABs. You heard one of my colleagues reference that tonight around looking at the IABs, digging deeper into those, looking at what students know, what students might need a little help on. Sometimes it's the way the question is asked or the way the skill is presented, and then they can go back and teach that discrete skill to students so they're more successful next time. And now we're going to transition into goal area 2.
Sure. And then just following up on some of that IEB work, we like to call it balancing smarter instead of smarter balance, because we're really looking at what Smarter Balance has available in terms of instructional supports and resources that our teachers can use. They have developed a really fantastic opportunity to dive down to content and specific standards. And so getting our teachers familiar with those resources and familiar with the interface and how it can be used, not just to assess what our students have learned, but also to help them get to where they need to be with the instructional strategies and resources that are available within Smarter Balance. So social emotional learning, our goals, you've heard our colleagues reference this as well. We do look at the SRSSIE, which is a teacher-based survey where they provide information on their students, and we're trying to go for reducing that by 50% for our internalizers and our externalizing behaviors. And then also looking at the panorama data for our 3-5, focusing on grit and self-efficacy, and really going from that 63 to 80 and that 60% to 80%, so about a 20% growth in that area. And if you see the graphic below, that is our SSRSIE data, looking at our students who are at risk and some that are at risk in both categories. And I'll talk more specifically about that data and what we've done uniquely at Harbor Heights this year in just a moment. So here at Harbor Heights, our mission statement is we're a passionate community dedicated to the success of the whole child. And I have to just celebrate our entire staff because they really do live and breathe that each day. We really do care about the whole child at Harbor Heights. It's our primary focus. We know our students have to be loved to learn. So looking at our action plan, we do prioritize a 30-minute cell block using that second step curriculum. We also prioritize having classroom meetings every day and also having calm down areas. Again, our incredible VPO sponsoring calm down kits for every classroom so that students have an opportunity to regulate and have a safe space in the classroom to regulate. We also have an Orca Cove at our campus, which is another place that we can give students additional support that may need a time away from the group to have some de-escalation time, to maybe do some strategies that using a body sock or using a trampoline, or some of the strategies that might be not the best place to be bouncing on a trampoline in the middle of your classroom, but maybe if you need that input, you can have an opportunity to take a break in the cove and work on some of those naming their feelings, picking a strategy, and then trying that out to get back to that green zone or zones of regulation in order to re-enter successfully. Also exciting for us this year is that we're exploring purposeful people, which is really an opportunity to look at our climate and culture building wide. This year we have decided to go with a campus focus, selecting a character focus for each month. And this is over, Ms. Shepard does a great job on the announcements every morning, highlighting that character trait and giving our students a character challenge. This has been a game changer for us at Harbor Heights because we're all speaking the same language at every grade level. We're all working to have a common focus. And our leadership kids have done a fantastic job of not only providing lessons for teachers, but also videos of the character traits of each month. They do a great job of recognizing that each and every day. And we also do restorative practices at Harbor Heights for anything that we process in terms of student discipline or student conflict. These circles are student to student, staff to student, and also have been classroom and community based. And this has really provided our students the opportunity to repair harm, restore relationships, and process conflict in a healthy way. These skills, I think about some of our students that had some emotional regulation areas we were working on a few years back, and now that student is my primary leader for my K1s, leading those circles himself and doing a fantastic job helping that student regulate and have that vocabulary as well. One of the things that we are doing uniquely back to our SSRSIE data this year is our incredible community in schools and our incredible school counselor and a team. We sit down and we look and make sure that every student who is recognized in a high-risk category is getting a tiered support, which could look like a one-on-one check-in, a specific behavior plan, a small group, a social group, a lunch group. Every student has a touch point with a staff member that cares about them and can support them with their specific goals. And selfishly, my lunch groups are my favorite part of my day. So
They're really
it's
fun
a
to
great-
watch.
My groups are, yeah, so it's a great opportunity, and we're seeing great gains. Uniquely this year, I know historically we focused a lot on those bigger externalizing behaviors, but this year we've really taken our internalizers and looked at them individually by name and need to figure out how we can help those students. And we've seen a lot of great growth this year.
I think that was our last slide. So any questions about either of our goals or any other questions about the Harbor Heights Orcas?
Yeah, just a comment. I love the communication board on the playground. And I had an opportunity to sit in on a first grade class at Harbor Heights a couple of years ago, and there was a student in there using a communication device.
Yes.
And it was just really cool to see how it was a really inclusive feeling. I was impressed with kids that young, were very, like, trying to help out the student, and just very patient when the student was trying to say something with the, so anyway,
I'd
good
like to
job.
point out to your point, Lori, that this picture right here, this is Justine Malik, our intermediate options teacher, and this is Mrs. Maxwell's third grade class. And at the beginning of the year, the students that were in Mrs. Maxwell's class were learning about a student that was in Mrs. Malik's support class that would be in their classroom for parts of the day, and how they are a student just like them. These are the ways that you connect and talk, and these are the things they like to learn about and talk about, and giving students an immediate connection to their peers, even if they do have some limited verbal ability.
Yeah, that's
or
awesome.
physical abilities. Yeah.
Great job. Thank you.
Our team's amazing.
Real quick, I'm glad you pointed out when you were talking about your, within ELA, you said something about understanding just how much work it takes to maintain
Yes.
that
Yes.
oral reading fluency.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit? Because
Sure.
it seems, probably to you it's obvious, but I think to a lot of us it's not.
Sure. Yeah. So when students, so when we do our benchmark testing through the year, fall, winter, spring, the passage is always an end of the year passage. So let's take third grade, for example. It's always whether that's 3.9 or 3.10, I don't know the exact number for third grade, but it's an end of the year passage. And so, and then the aim line, or the amount of growth that kids have to make to continue on that aim line towards benchmark grows as well. So not only is the text difficult, but increasing to become on grade level or at benchmark increases as well. I believe Delana referenced that with the growth. So we were really excited when we sat down for our winter RTI reading meetings. It's the lab teacher, the grade level teams, Kelsey or I. Sometimes our resource teacher can sit in on those if it allows with her schedule. And we looked at all the students, and they made growth. All students made growth. Maybe it wasn't to benchmark, but they might have moved from intensive to strategic, or strategic to core, and that's important to celebrate and acknowledge as well. Yeah.
I have one. I think this
Okay.
might be the first time I've heard of SRSSIE. Can you just explain what that is? It a survey?
You heard it a minute ago. Delana called it Cersei.
Oh, okay.
we have our
I didn't hear
acronyms.
that.
Some of us spell it out. Some of us say Cersei.
Okay.
So yeah, it is like a comprehensive survey that our teachers fill out, and the teacher has a rating scale for students looking at specific behaviors, both on internalizing and externalizing behaviors. So as students come in the fall, teachers are rating students based on their behavior. Interestingly, for us this year, what we noticed is when the fall, it's really, really early when we do that survey, and then in winter you get to know the kids a little bit more. So there was a lot more information in that survey, which kind of skewed our data from fall to winter. But that is our social emotional predictor that we're progress monitoring 3 times a year to see what our students are needing.
And James Cantonwine has taught me. Last year was my first year in the district, so that was a new screener for me. Was not familiar with that, and I learned that that's data that we track and follow into high school, so that we want to. It's sort of that safety net and that catch for what students have been internalizing since this grade, and how are they doing now? And so it's just an internal data source we have in Peninsula as well.
There we go. Another acronym for you. That's the actual. Yes. Yes. Do y'all do it?
K-12.
Oh, yeah. K-12, yeah.
But for us, meeting as a dean counselor and with our CIS, it's been wonderful
Yes.
for us to, I mean, I'm a data geek, so I like to organize and color code, but to be able to use that data to design all of our intervention supports instead of just having a subjective, well, I think this kid might need some connection, to really have the data to track and be intentional with our time and our resources to support our students where they need it.
When we keep that data on a tier 2 intervention form, so we know what interventions we tried, maybe that wasn't the right intervention and we need to move to a different one. So our support team sits down and we talk about that every 2 weeks. Yeah. Yeah.
What is STEM Snapology?
Sure. So Snapology they're a vendor, they're a company, but they're great. And I do want to point out that at our Snapology program, they have hired some staff from the high school. What's the program called? I forget the name of the program. What? No. It's the Community Transition Program. That's what it is. Sorry. I knew it would come to me. So we have 2 students in that program that come and help lead that after school enrichment. So they're practicing advocacy skills like, excuse me, here's the roster who is absent today. So they'll interact with me or the office staff. And then Snapology is it's a vendor program, but our VPO sponsors them to be on campus. And then the students do pay to attend, and they do offer, our VPO is willing and always cognizant of cost and does do some offset for if any scholarships are needed. So cost is never a barrier. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for letting me brag on the Orcas. Okay.
Okay, we are going to move on to Goodman. That was a little lackluster. I mean,
I was sitting back there and thinking to myself, put me in front of 450 middle schoolers, I'm right at home. Put me in a podium and I'm really nervous. So,
It's okay because we saw you today in front of your 450 students, so we know.
I'm Ty Roebuck. I'm the principal at Goodman Middle School, and just really excited to be here, so thank you. I'd like to introduce Don Musgrove, my assistant principal, and my partner there at Goodman. And truly, I get the opportunity to share a really quick snapshot of where we're at. But I want to just make certainly a note. I have amazing teachers that just showed up here to be here to support part of our leadership team. They truly are the ones that do the work. So while I get to share the good stuff that's going on, they're the amazing people that are making it happen. So I just want you to know that. Okay, we are an Avid school, 6 months in, and they took all my thunder. So I really, the students, I kind of feel like I could just sit down right now. So we have, a lot of the things that we're going to talk about tonight truly have been work done around Avid. You heard from Natalie about UDL. Like it's just a pleasure to see where we're moving just based on this framework that we get to use. You've heard of PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention Systems. We're also a PBIS school. That's part of MTSS work. So we like to be respectful, responsible, and safe in our building. Quick snapshot. How do I explain to you everything that we're doing at a middle school with middle schoolers in 12 minutes or less, I was told. So, I would start with the old adage saying that truly kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I know it's cliche, I know it's old school, but it is so true. And with middle schoolers, it's by the minute, sometimes by the second, and so we really, that's our focus. And so you're gonna hear a lot of those pieces tonight. These are just quick pictures of just the great things that we're doing and how we invest in our kids, enrich with them, also connect with them. We wanted to go over just an overall score. Our focus is on all grade levels. We know that the strategic plan is focused on 8th grade, but we recognize that we have a lot of work to do, but we have to do it in all our grade levels. Our SBA goal for our cohort, based on the strategic plan, is to raise them up 10% in reading. And we're going to focus on reading. I'll share a little bit about math as well. Okay? All right, move on. Our work this year initially has been focused on our iReady testing, and we're focusing on reading and math. And we did this by looking at the 1 year behind and the 2-3 year behind based on the iReady scores. So what we did was we intentionally focused on 75% of those students, moving them forward to grade level. We know that's not 100%, but it's a reasonable, manageable part. And what we did was for each grade level with each teacher, we took that number. So we were able to really break it down to the student. So we went from a whole grade level to, okay, I've got these 50 kids in my class, to, okay, if I can move 30 of those students up, we're really, those bubble kids, moving them up, then we can manageably move forward. And we know that by the next year, then we've taken a big bite of that, and then we can really move towards a strategic plan of 100%. We do believe that all kids are capable of success. It takes that intentional focus of knowing the kids. We talked about knowing them. This is the work that we're doing. You have that in your SIP plans. I didn't want to put it all in there. Again, this is a short presentation, but I really wanted to share that out. This right here is just the work that these guys are doing every day, shows that we're showing high performance in our iReady. From fall to winter, you would, like we use that through line that he talked about, we want to be over here. Our students are growing and they're achieving, and we know that the work that we're doing is the right work. Some of the work, the steps that we're taking, AVID strategies. So we have AVID goals, and that link is in there for you. But our AVID strategies, you heard from Natalie saying that there are some that are specific to a cohort, but we do them school-wide as well. And so we're focusing on, in our staff meetings, in our CWs, what type of strategies are we using? We're also coming up with our own Wicker, like GMS Wicker plan. And so every month we've been looking and focusing on one of those. We also been creating goal setting through iReady and in the classroom, talking to students. This is where your score is. Where are we going? We also do that with a grade level check as well. The district's been using UDL, so we've been trying to tie the UDL work with the grade level or AVID work as well. When you move into tier 2, it's the MTSS. We've been actually creating a learning site plan with all year that we've been really putting into, and most recently we're actually putting into what we call a blueprint. So what does that look like? And so we're putting in staff commitments. So we have staff commitments, what commitments students will do, what commitments the parents will do, what commitments administration will do. And we're building that right now, and that will be in place for next year. Again, we also have some study skill classes for students who need a little extra help. You've heard this WIN coming from the elementary. I kind of took that name because we have a WIN class, and every school has, or every middle school has a different name for it, but we just call it WIN because we believe that every kid needs that opportunity, what they need to learn. And so on Mondays, we do Character Strong. On Tuesday, we do grade checks and binder checks. We're building towards that binder check piece school-wide. And then on Thursdays and Fridays, students have created a plan on Tuesday with their grade check to go and see specific teachers during that specific time. So we're trying to find opportunities within our schedule to build support for our students. For other students, when it gets into that other category, we've been working with our EL coordinators across the district to give teachers an opportunity to understand different ways, like different methods of learning to focus and support kids. And then for those students who might need extra help as we go through MTSS, we actually meet with our students as well. So our counselors, I have about 20 kids on my caseload that I meet with weekly. And we go over grades, we talk about where we're going, talk about what's going on in school, and it's probably about anywhere from, I don't know, 5 to 15 minutes. But that's relevant because when we take time, I can email teachers. They've gotten their emails from me. We just sit down like, well, what's going on? Well, I'm not sure what's going on in class, or I thought I turned it in, which you hear a lot from middle schoolers. And so I'm like, well, that's great. Let's email the teacher and let's talk to them. And so really that communication loop of supporting kids has been really powerful, and they know that they're gonna get that little extra TLC. Sorry, I'm just kind of bubbling along. The pictures here represent some of the work that is around Wicker and around some of the flexible methods. This is science, and so kids are given the opportunity to get vocabulary terms and then use their work, their passion for different projects or different pictures. I'll go with that. And then this is also across our whole science wing. They've taken this work and posted it for all the kids to go out and kind of play with. Currently, we have March Mammal Madness. It's not a picture up there, but if you'd like to compete, we have these great videos. I was the staff winner last year, so I have put that up against any staff member this year, just so you know. But it's a great opportunity. It looks like March Madness, only it's with mammals, and then they have this competing video piece, and it's pretty stellar. So all this work is done in the AVID strategies, our UDL work, our flexible methods, our reflecting on teaching. All these staff commitments are not just in reading, but also in our science and our math. The second area we've been focusing on is our SEL. And again, just that idea of really focusing on the sense of belonging. You can see it's a lower level here from spring. It really dropped in the last couple of years. And that's been something, as for data purposes, our staff really took to heart. We were in a staff meeting, and it was so powerful when the staff said, that's not good enough. Like, our kids don't feel like they belong. And we recognize, right, with masks on or in a Zoom box, right, the Brady Bunch on the video, like, they didn't connect, and they're middle schoolers. And we have a lot of students who have been living in crisis, more so than ever. And so what can we as a staff do to affect change? So our focus this year is to increase that number from 46 to 70%. We've been, like I said, been using our win time to do that. Last year was at 41. It's increased a little bit, but we want to keep going with that. We also recognize our EL student population was the lowest percentage in that. So we have some work to do. So some of the action plans that we've taken place, like I mentioned, is our Character Strong lessons on Monday. Intentional contact, so we've actually changed our whole morning routine. We had students just come in and stand in the commons. I don't know if you've ever been to a commons in the morning in middle school. It's delightful. But we just noticed that they're just kind of standing in those groups. It's a really, kind of, there's a group over there, there's a group over there. So what we did with the support of our PE team is we have a rotation in the morning now where teachers come out to the front. Our students come out from the bus zone. They walk all around the front of the school so that we can make intentional contact with at least 2 to 3 teachers before they even walk in the door. They are able to hang out in the gym, play basketball. We have music going. We're out front opening up doors, talking to students. And then we've actually started the bell earlier so that kids can go into the commons and still get that little bit of time to connect and kind of practice those skills, and then they go to class. So it's a small thing, but it's had a really powerful impact, and I think it's really started out our culture and our climate on a really right start. And I really would invite you to come and see that. Again, student outreach, like I'll share in a little bit some of the different partners that we've done. You've heard some of already, like our CLR and communities and schools. Like we've really tried to make connections with them. We also have pride tickets and awards. Again, trying to recognize kids for the great things that they're doing. We do have group counseling. We have check-in and check-outs with different staff. These staff members have a lot of check-in and check-outs, and so do all our staff members. They all have students that connect with. We recognize that, as say the principal, I can't connect with all 450 kids. But if each of us take on a little group, we can get all our students connected with an adult. And that's our goal. We do 4 at the door. So in the mornings now, and this has been a shift for us as well, is that we're out in the hallways. We're talking to kids. They know that we've given eye contact and recognition before they even walk in the classroom. Because again, to have a sense of belonging, the worst thing that can happen is to walk through the entire day and not be recognized. We've actually done an activity where we lined up and we had a teacher walk down the hallway and we, one, praised them, which is kind of fun. Second time, we actually made comments towards them, negative, sneered, I know, it's okay, it comes back to it. And then the third one, we just didn't speak to them. And the teachers recognized that the hardest one wasn't the negative comments, it was not being recognized. So we take that to heart. We want our kids to feel the impact. We want them to know that we're there for them. It's hard because they're middle schoolers and they might say hi to you one day and then not say hi to you. But we don't take that to heart. We're always in it. It's hard work. and they're amazing. So, again, then tier 3, again, admin, counselor check-ins, meetings, MTSS team meetings, using comprehensive life resources on site. So again, getting support and counseling in the building for our kiddos, specifically ones that really need that, and oftentimes would be pulled out of school for long periods of time to go see a counselor. They're in the building. Our measures are our panorama results, which I'll share in a second. Our win progress monitoring, excuse me. Again, you have all these links. Our priority referral statistics. We'd love to see more students being recognized. Tier 2 MTS building learning plan that also will be linked in our SIP plan. Our expectations and agendas. And again, just all the work that they're doing, you'll see in our SIP plan. So, again, we teach students and children and not just content. And for middle school, that's a big shift, and it's been amazing. And again, I cannot compliment my staff for how hard they work every day. If we're looking at the work we're doing, teacher-student relationships went from 58% to 72%. It's not complete, but it shows what we're doing is really having an impact. Additionally, the subcontext of those, these are the questions that kids answer. How many of your teachers are respectful towards you? 93%. Up 8. If you walked into class upset, how many of your teachers would be concerned? 65%, up 17. Double digit in all these categories. If you came back to visit class 3 years from now, this actually happened just the other day, we were talking about this. How many of your teachers would be excited to see you? 66%, up 15. Now, granted, we had some students we are still trying to recognize without the mask on, and then of course, they go from middle school to high schoolers and they talk like this. But it's pretty amazing that the kids come back, they want to go see their teachers. They want to check in. And of course, you can see the other ones. We use comprehensive life resources. We use Character Strong and community in schools. So with that, it's just a snapshot of our day. We have amazing groups. We have partnerships. We have a leadership team. We do tournaments during our win time with the help of our PE department. So this was, I believe, Ultimate Frisbee tournament. We've done great assemblies. And so, again, I just thank you for the opportunity to share out. I know it's just a snapshot, and I would just invite you, because it's just a snapshot, I invite you to come join us for a day. Just come hang out, because you really, I cannot tell you how great it is. You have to see it for yourself. Thank you. Questions?
Ty. Okay.
Chuck.
Middle school was a time that I remember more than any point of school. It was the toughest, but yet the most rewarding time. And so I know, looking at your numbers, I'm awed. And the work on social emotional behaviors and stuff, this is the place to do it in middle school. Some of the things that draw kids to come to school are those things, the grass, the carrot. Before we can teach them math and all these academic things, they have to want to come there. And so I applaud you for all that you're doing, and your numbers look great. From what I've seen from the other middle schools, it seems like yours are some of the highest. I don't know if that's true or not, but from
I'm just going to say yes, Chuck. I don't know if
what
it's
I've
true
seen
either.
in the comparisons I've done, it's
No. And truly, the middle school teams work together.
Yeah.
And our admin team works together. And but it is this is just a compliment to them. So thank you.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make that comment to you more than anything.
Thank you. I will say that I went to Goodman as a middle schooler, and I'm not just a proud principal. I'm a proud parent of a middle schooler at Goodman. So it's heartwarming. I will tell you, Goodman was really hard. middle school was one of the hardest times. And I share that story the first day of school with our students. I moved from Virginia. It was horrible. I was treated, you recognize that connection, right?
Yeah.
Coming from a different place, not feeling connected, this is my heart, you know, and this is the work that we're doing, so.
Right. Thank you, and thank you for what you're doing there. I know we've known each other from other schools.
Yeah.
But good to see you in that position.
Thank you, sir.
My kids also went to Goodman, and they loved it, and so maybe it's like a sine wave. I don't know. They were in sports, and they were in clubs and music, and they love Goodman. And so, like Chuck said, you know, I've known you for 10 years, and back when you were at Minnow Creek. So to me, it's no surprise that the culture at Goodman is due to you. You know, and I know it's your staff, but it's also you, the person you are. Your culture is a direct reflection on you. When you look at the one slide, 72%, and this is where I've had a discussion with other schools over the past couple months around the belonging surveys, that we're seeing these surveys of kids that are saying their sense of belonging is super low. And for me, it doesn't quite track whenever you see, and this, I mean, 93% is amazingly high. All of those, the numbers that you put up on those surveys, and then 72% obviously coming out of a pandemic where they were remote learners and disengaged, that sense of a belonging or the connection with the teacher student's going to drop. Sense of belonging is they were not in school, but we were seeing, you know, being on the board long enough, that sense of belonging data has been there for a while, pre-pandemic. And so one of the things I mentioned recently was like, are we asking the question right about what do they mean by sense of belonging? Is it they don't like math class, but they love drama? Do they not like reading or science, but they love wrestling, whatever? You know, I don't know why that belonging data, because based on 46%, but then looking at the numbers from your survey, to me, that doesn't track, because, I mean, they obviously love your staff based on those results, and the teacher connection is amazingly high, and so I've just been at a loss over all these SIP plans that why the disconnect on the sense of belonging when these numbers right here are really, really good, and that's a testament to you and your staff. So, you know, that's 100% hoo-yah for that. Do you have any thoughts on?
Yeah, I do, David. You know, coming out of COVID, you know, we had students who weren't connected to anybody. They were at home. They didn't get a chance to go out and be with their friends. And we're talking about middle schoolers who really, this is their time to learn to be independent, but also build those like kind of relationships. And when they came here, the sense of belonging, there's probably a connection to a sense of belonging to the school and the community, but it's a sense of belonging to each other. Our students haven't had that. Last year was the first year that we had kids wearing a jersey, and some of our 8th graders here, this is the first year that they've had a chance to wear a jersey, to be part of a community. You know, and so that's huge when you think about, you know, in 6th grade and 7th grade and 8th grade, you get these opportunities. They didn't get them. We've had some of our first socials this year, and they have been really well attended, and we've just gone out of our way to, you know, have, you know, oh man, what do you call those lights? Sorry, I'm nervous. Glow sticks, and we've had all types of things out there for the kids, and they're just, you can see them be kids again. And I'm gonna knock on wood. Our kids are behaving like middle schoolers, so, you know, when they get in trouble, we even recognize, like, okay, they're acting like middle schoolers again. All right, you know, like, don't do that again. But good job. You know what I mean? Like, you know, and so we kind of see that. They need to bond with each other. And some of our kids still struggle, just like they would be anytime. We have kids that don't connect with other friends. We have kids who feel isolated. We have kids who don't feel like they connect with us, but they don't feel like they have their people. And so again, building up those opportunities to find. We have a Dungeons and Dragons club that met today. Yes. And there's like, I think 7 or 8 of them, and they love it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't either.
But you know what? They absolutely love it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Those are their people. You know, we got our band kids. We had our social for social. I love this story. Our band kids went and got their instruments without Mrs. Allison knowing, which I'm probably going to get in trouble for if she hears this. But they came out. They're in the gym playing their instruments together in the stands. And there's kids playing basketball. And guess what? They're having a good old time. The kids are like, yeah, keep playing. So we have band kids playing, got basketball kids playing. They need to be connected like that. And it's really cool to see.
Yep. So two quick things. One, first, thank you for your goal area 1 academic. Thank you for putting on there that your goal is 100%. So I know we talked year-over-year growth, but having that mindset of 100% rather than we only need 5% growth this year, that can be a detractor. And so to have your goal 100%, you know, I appreciate you having that on there. So thank you for that. Last thing, I know you've said this before, but how do your kids earn the Pride tickets and what can they buy with them? Well,
go for it.
Well, we do have Pride tickets, and our Pride tickets for it's similar like copying good, or if you've done something outstanding, you just get an award. And then at the end of the month, I ended up doing an auction, so we bring in some items. The community has donated items. We have businesses that have like Jersey Mike's that have given free lunches, free sandwiches.
All healthy.
For that. Huh?
I was just saying it's all healthy and
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a vegetarian one.
Yeah.
And the chocolate chip cookies. But they have everything that the community has really built and given us a lot of things to do. And then, of course, I like to go shopping for cheesy stuff that is really healthy and looks like it tastes of the rainbow, you know, like a really healthy stuff. But they dig it. And they will come in, and they're at lunchtime, and we do this auction. I'm like, here's an item. We're going to start at like 50 Pride tickets. And then you'll hear kids just pinging all over the place, and they come up there so excited. So they're looking for that, and they're holding on to those Pride tickets. They really want to get those. And we have teachers, myself, if they turned in work, they get a Pride ticket. If they tried their work, they get a Pride ticket. You know, so really, that's something they're looking for, which leads to also our the Pride Awards, which is another step up. So it's amazing the kids are buying into it.
can fellow students nominate another student for a Pride ticket?
You know, actually today we had
During the play, you saw it, during the intermission, a student leaned forward to a student in front of him and said, you know what, your audience behavior has been really great. And I just think that you should have a Pride ticket. And he was so genuine and sincere. And the student in front of him, you know, there's the learning curve of audience behavior. And so that was really heartwarming.
Yeah.
So I think
It's not a common practice, but we're getting there. So.
But they're really doing that, and that does a huge thing for community involvement and ownership there.
Pride Awards are a little different. We take, a teacher can write up a Pride Award for a student. We call them down. We take their picture. It goes up on the wall. Crescent had the opportunity to be there one day, and she actually gave away my cookie to the kid. You totally did. But it was great. I know. I kind of called you out on it. I did. So she's like, "Well, you should just have a cookie." But like we have a basket of stuff, and we always call home, and it's great, especially coming from the principal or vice principal, because usually you don't get the positive calls. So it's usually like, oh, what do they do? And so, sometimes the kids actually ask me to play it in a little bit. I try not to scare them too much. But yeah, so if you come into our office, you'll see the pictures up on the walls of all our students. And so.
You mentioned, I'm actually looking right here on your action plan for Tier 1. I'm curious about, you're talking about your AVID strategies, and then how that is kind of dovetailing with UDL, your UDL work. And I know from, you're sitting on the Inclusionary Practices Committee that have the pleasure of seeing you a couple times a year on that. Can you talk a little bit more about, are you really seeing that those two are dovetailing, they're reinforcing each other, so we're not kind of working in two separate spheres?
Yeah, so a universally designed for learning is focusing on flexible methods, right? And ultimately helping kids have different opportunities to get there. We use the pool party analogy, right? We don't expect every kid to wear the same swimsuit to, go to the same pool. Maybe they don't like the pool, And so again, trying to give, working with our teachers, we've been working together on how can we get kids to the same place to show standard. Now, from the elementary to the middle school, right, from secondary, we're starting to do, we have grades, and so how do we really help kids meet the grades and show standards and how those standards relate? And so really it's those pieces that we're always thinking through. That's where the CW is so important. But we do see a connection to it. And the nice thing as we are building this, as we're working with UDL, AVID is just, it's a great framework, right? We have these strategies. Wicker, they have just a plethora of strategies. And it helped our teachers recognize that they're doing a lot of that work already. We just haven't really sat down and been intentional about it, but they're always thinking that way. But now we're really thinking through on a unit plan, how do we do that? How do we get there? And so that's been really powerful in our team time. So.
But, thinking about that and looking at it with, again, in your action plan for Tier 3, talking about your EL specialists collaborating to support EL students in the classroom. Yeah. And then I can't help but link that back then to sense of belonging, saying how the EL students report the lowest sense of belonging. And so I really appreciate that, the identification of that across the school, all teachers, how to support not just those EL students, but, ideally elevating like that, whatever they're going to bring to help support EL students, elevating the quality of instruction and the opportunities for all the students.
Exactly. What we do for one, it should be able to do for everybody. And sometimes we talk about kind of like this group should have this group should have this, and we start kind of labeling, and we're trying to get away from those labels. We talk about these are all our students, and so what do we do for all our students in the classroom? And that's difficult to do sometimes at a middle school or at a secondary because it is content related. And so sometimes we go through the day and they're not able to see each other, because we have a science wing, we have a math wing. So we really are trying to break those boundaries, not only for students, but for our staff, so they have the opportunities to connect with each other. So.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And I love your whole, the intentional contact and for at the door and all that. I feel like thinking about Houston Kraft when we got to hear him at our last, or 2 conferences ago, and really resonated that, it's not if somebody says something bad to you, it's if they don't even notice you. And that was such a powerful story when he told it, and you're seeing it and living it every day. So thank you for that. I mean, that's the proof's in your numbers right there. So thank you. It's really fantastic to see.
I just add that I was going to save this later for my comments, but since you're stuck there, and in case you guys leave, it was just a pleasure to be inside the building today and get to see the musical Wizard of Oz. And to this point, exactly this slide here, I think, well, 2 things. The trajectory these numbers are on is just incredible. I mean, it's really encouraging. But I got to see it firsthand today with all of you, and just the way that talk about could have been completely chaotic environment, with all the kids in the commons. And, there was times, to your point, there was a few squirrely kids near us, and I'm thinking, isn't it weirdly great to be in a gym packed with squirrely middle school kids? It's like we're back to where
I'm glad you thought that.
We're supposed to be. But it just was a great, it was a joy to see how you all interacted with the kids, and just the vibe, and really for a sense of belonging, I don't think there could be anything better than a musical with the number of kids that were involved, and which is to say nothing about how awesome it was, and I can talk more about that later. But really just the whole culture and the vibe is just a credit to all of you. So thanks for coming and sharing.
Thank you.
we're going to move on to our I believe this is our last of all the SIP presentations. Henderson Bay.
Last but not least.
Definitely not the least.
Put me after this.
I know.
It's a little unfair. That's right. That's right. So, let me see. Am I on there? So, I told Tanya I was going to wing it, and she said, "Don't." So for you, I took some notes. So, thank you. Well, thanks for having me here today. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Henderson Bay is a different type of school. And what I love about it is that we have the ability to connect with students in a different way than the larger schools can. Just by scale, they're not able to do what we're able to do. And students come to us because they're seeking something different. Many of our kids are coming because they don't feel connected, they don't feel welcome at the big schools. So they're coming to us because they want something different. And I kind of love that. I love that they're making that choice to come join us. So start out with this slide, just a couple of fun things. And I will say, next Tuesday at our staff meeting, you all are welcome to come and try to win the belt. We do a staff-wide rock, paper, scissors competition. The only rule is that if you win, you need to bring the belt to every meeting. So that's okay. At the center here, we have what's called the Bay Way, and we took this on last year. The Bay Way, these are the core values that we try to live by, that we try to implement in our building. And it was created with staff and student input. And this was during some activities last year. As a staff, we'd get together and we'd have some conversations and some activities. We'd bring it back to the students. They'd bring it back to us. So it truly was a collaborative effort. And we try to live by this, and we celebrate it when we do. We have our Students of the Month, our Empowered Student of the Month, our Empathetic Student of the Month, and our Excellent Student of the Month. And we also, it's on wheels. We also call it out when we're falling short. At our all-school meeting this week, we had to say, hey, you know what? We kind of failed on this in some way. So we need to revisit this and make sure that this isn't just a poster on the wall. So that's one of our commitments, is to make sure that is a true core value that we're living by, and not just something that we put on a shirt or something like that. So we have, let's see, go here. The two main areas that we're going to focus on, and we break it down pretty simply. We got to earn as many credits as we can, and we got to keep kids in school. Because if we're going to graduate 100% of the kids that come to Henderson Bay, they have to earn credits, and we got to keep them. And sometimes that's a challenge, okay? So our first goal, oops, there we go. I should have used a bigger font. Our goal is that we have a 4-period day. We want 75%, well, we want 100%, but at least 75% of kids passing 3 out of 4 classes. When you see the data, we're not quite there. And we want at least 50% of our kids passing 4 out of 4 classes. If you look at our rationale, if students are credit deficient, if they're passing 3 out of 4 classes, they are staying on track. If they're passing 4 out of 4 classes, they're making an advancement. So if a kid comes to us credit deficient, they can make up ground. If a kid comes to us early, they can actually create some possibilities outside of the school day. West Sound Tech, Running Start, internships, jobs, etc. By making those that advanced credit, if that makes sense. So a student who comes to us as a freshman can earn more credits, seek some different opportunities while they're still in high school. Let me go back. Nope, there I am. I'll talk about some action plans, but our measures, in the first quarter, we had 48% of our students passed 4 out of 4 classes, and only 71% passed 3 out of 4. We're getting there, okay? Second quarter, 54% passed 4 out of 4, and 70% passed 3 out of 4. Once we clean up some data with incompletes, that will be higher and probably closer to that 75%, but we're still not quite there. What we're trying to do to build that, every week in advisory, Monday is Mindful Monday. Students are setting goals, they're tracking their grades, their advisors are tracking their grades, they're sitting down in collaboration to look at, well, if you're only passing 3 classes right now, what do we do to pass that other one? If you're passing 4 out of 4, okay, we're on track. If we're not passing, okay, we need to do some different things. Our monthly MTSS meetings, we're digging down into some of those kids, trying to dig other plans for them. I put a little star next to Wednesday tutoring. We're trying to build that program. You're welcome to come in on Wednesday and help us with some tutoring. We just haven't quite hit that mass where we get that consistent group coming in. A new thing that we're working on that I think is pretty exciting is, and I need a different name than Credit Retrieval Boot Camp, but over spring break, we're going to invite students in to work through some credit retrieval activities so that if they've fallen short in first semester, we'll be able to help them along. Our focus is on seniors, try to get as many towards graduation as we can, and then we'll start filling in with our juniors and others. If they're not making progress, they're not going to come. And kids who are already feeling disengaged from school, we've got to help them build that success. And probably more importantly is building that connection to school so that they feel like they can come to school. Our second goal for SEL is increasing that sense of belonging. And our number is only at 38% positive. And David, I'm with you. That doesn't jive with what I see. And so I have this competition between my heart and my brain. My heart tells me that that number is much higher, but my brain says we got to prove it. And so we're like, how do we make that? What are we doing? And I agree. Maybe we need to ask the question differently. Okay. Oops, my thing closed on me. So we want to grow that by at least 10%. And so one of the things that we started looking at is what is the role of our staff in creating belonging, and what is the role of our students in creating belonging? Because as a staff, we can do a lot of good things, but we want the students to be part of that as well. Let me switch to this. Did that go? So we do a lot of things in our advisories that are teacher-led, right? We have Mindful Monday where we're setting goals, doing the grade checks. Wellness Wednesday where we're trying to focus on taking care of our mind, body, and spirit. And then we called Fulfilled Friday where you're checking those goals and monitoring that progress again. We use Generation Wellness, which really is focused on the well-being of, so we connect, let's see, I'm gonna mess it up. First thing we want kids to come in and just put themselves in position to be in school for the day. If I come to school and I've got turmoil in my life, it's hard to focus or care about being in class. So we try to get them to regulate themselves, connect with others, and then at the end, reflect on where they're at. We do that in our advisories. Another activity that we did is what we call relationship mapping. And again, we can say that we create a sense of belonging, but how do we know it? So as a staff, what we did is we just took all of our kids, put their names on a wall, and said, who do we really have a connection with? As a staff member, who do you feel that you are connected with? And you go and you look, and then you notice, boy, this kid might have a lot, but this kid might not have very many. And so then we were purposeful about, well, let's target this kid. Who's going to make this student a priority? What can we do to make this student feel like they're more welcome? We'll do that again at the end of the year to see if now we can fill in those blanks. Every kid should be able to come in and feel like they've got a person, right? And most of our kids do, but we can't just say that that's the case. The other thing that we're doing is we're challenging our students to take ownership of this as well. So our student leadership group, we're challenging them. What can you do to help build that sense of belonging? And we ran into a hiccup where at the semester we got a whole new group of student leaders. So we had been prepping this, and then we went, oh, we should have realized that that's going to happen. So we started with them, just what does it mean to belong, and what does it look like when you belong? And so we've got this brainstorming all over the wall in our leadership class, and then the students will take that and they're going to start building some, either as individuals or small groups, what are some activities that we can take out to the rest of the school? Some of it is looking at that panorama data. Our students said, why do we do this survey, but we never get to see it? And we thought, duh, let's bring it to the kids. They're the ones who really are going to know what to do with it. So we're helping them, or they're helping us to implement some plans on how to build belonging in our building. And so those will be coming soon. But they know best. Another thing that we did just as an interim measure, and I think I have it backwards. No, I have it right, is we just did a different survey after we did our relationship mapping. We said, well, what would the students say? So we just created a little survey when we said, asked them a couple questions, and one was, do you have a trusted adult in the building that you would talk to about academic issues? 95% of them said, yeah, we do. And we're like, oh, yes, that's good. Do you have a trusted adult in the building that you would talk to about personal issues? And 85% of them said they would. And so that's pretty positive. That to me, that's very different than the panorama. Maybe they just didn't ask the question right. So we asked it a little bit differently. Let's see where they get to here. A couple of things that we do to try to also build that sense of belonging. Every Wednesday we have an all-school meeting. And because of our size, we can do that. We get everyone in our commons, share some announcements, and here's what's coming up, and here's the cool things. And then we try to do celebrations. We do our Students of the Month there. One of the cool things that we're doing in the spring is having our seniors share, what are you doing next year, right? And just this week we were able to share, the first time since I've been there, one of our students who's got a full ride to play college athletics. That's pretty cool. So for students to see from each other, what are the cool things that are happening? And sometimes it's, hey, this kid got a job. Hey, this kid's had a birthday. Try to celebrate those. But try to do that in a public way where everyone is there and seeing each other. And in a small school, you can do that. In a big school, you can't. And I'm just going to end with this. I do, we have work to do, you know. We say we're a family. We say that we have these connections, but like I said, my heart and my brain, we gotta prove it. Getting our kids involved. We've got, if the goal is to graduate every kid, every student, we've graduated 7 kids already this year. At the quarter, 4-ish, I think it's 4, but it might be 5. Kids will be completing their work. And at the end of the year, we'll have about 40 students graduating. That's the most, maybe 42. That's the most since I've been there. COVID was challenging, and the perseverance to get through that is pretty cool. And the last thing, I just want to thank our community partners. We have some awesome partnerships in our building. Communities and schools. We have, I think you all have site coordinators. We have the greatest site coordinator, and we couldn't do what we do without communities and schools. They're fantastic. Crossroads Recovery is in our building, serving our students, and they are fantastic. And we also have Comprehensive Life Resources. Someone else mentioned that. Huge partnership. We've gone from 1 full day of counseling with Comprehensive Life Resources to 2 full days. We could probably add a 3rd day. And then we have 2 to 3 days a week with a case manager who does some other work with our students. Super essential for the kids that we serve. So we need those partners. I just want to thank them in this setting. So I think that's the last of mine. Yep. Last one. How did I do? I kept turning off, so I was rambling. So, thank you.
Yeah, Brian, thanks for your presentation. So I agree. I mean, in order for your folks to graduate, they got to stay in school. So in 2022, post-pandemic, as you said, was a challenging year, and some of your kids left and didn't graduate. I'm curious, did any of those students that didn't graduate last year come back this year and start? If so, how are they doing? And in your plan, not in your slides, but in your plan, it showed where you were with students in the fall, 33 on track to graduate, and that you plan to keep them there. And then you showed how many kids were, at least in the fall, not on track to graduate. So obviously for them, if they don't make it over this year, then they need to come back next year. Yes. So when do you take your next assessment for on track? So you can say, okay, here's where we were in the fall. Right. Here's where we are now. So when do you do like a Q2, Q3 assessment to see how do you get those kids over the line before graduation?
Yeah, we just did, let's see, semester ended January 30th or whatever, so we took about really right at midwinter break was when grades were final and posted and in the system. And so we did another analysis then. I was looking at it, I'm like, wait a second, we're missing some kids. Some of our kids fell off. I learned how to use Google Slides and color code some things. And so my greens that are graduating, I was like, we went from 33 to we're only at 27. What happened? Well, we graduated 6 of them. So every quarter we do another analysis. How many credits did we earn? Our counselor and our advisors look at, okay, what are the classes that we need? Are the kids in the right classes? Are we setting them up? Can we offer them the right program for the rest of the year to graduate? So we do that every quarter, really before every quarter, then right after every quarter with the credits. So that's where we're looking at. We had, I think, 33 who were on track. We were able to take some of those who were not quite on track, move them a little bit, again, because we have the extra, the 4-period day and the extra class, they're advancing a little bit in credit, so we're able to move a little bit more up there. Students who aren't on track, the goal is that they will return to us next year, or sometimes we need to find a different option for them. Maybe school's not for them right now, so we look at Job Corps, we look at Fresh Start, we look at Bates, Clover Park, we look at other options that might be a better situation for that student, right? If you're a senior with 5 credits and you need 24, maybe coming back for a 5th year doesn't make sense, because you're going to also need a 6th year and maybe a part of a 7th. But maybe we can get you to Bates, and that might be a place where it fits better for you. So we start looking at that right now. We're having meetings with students. Hey, what do you want to do? Do you want to commit to another year here, or is it better to take a look somewhere else in a different program? What we don't want is for them to disappear.
I haven't heard this question asked in a while. How do you track them to maybe if they don't come back, that maybe you help them get their GED post Henderson Bay? Like how do you get them a GED? Yep. Does Bates have a GED program that they can go to?
One of the tough things that we have is, and we have referred several students to GED program this year through Goodwill. They have a GED program, but right now it's like, hey, it's not working for you. Go get a GED somewhere else. And so we're looking at how can we add a GED program here in our district through what's called Open Doors. And so we're working on that application right now. Open Doors has a couple different, I'm going to talk myself into a corner here because I don't know if I'm not an expert on Open Doors, but they have a couple different pathways that you can go through. One is a GED and one is like a graduation pathway, but it's different than what we do in our school. So we're looking at that. So instead of saying, hey, go to Tacoma and good luck, It's, hey, here's where you're at here. Maybe this program right still on our campus or in our district could work for you. So we're working on that.
Yeah, and the reason I asked about GED is, in the past, if you didn't have a degree, your high school diploma, and you wanted to like go to college, or
Yep.
certain programs out there required a high school diploma, and you needed that GED.
Yep.
I'm not familiar with technical college requirements for entry. Do they require GED to get into Bates, or can you take classes without a GED and earn a trade at Bates? That's my question.
Right. I don't believe that they require at
So
Bates,
Brian,
but-
I just wanted to add in, I know that I've met with Robin and your application process.
Yep.
So I think working in tandem for that, to get that done,
Mhm.
that is an application that needs to go through the state.
Yep.
And I know that Dan and myself are here and ready to help that process. And I do not believe that students can go to Bates and not have their
Correct.
and not have graduated. So
Right. And they have a high school completion program as well.
Yeah.
So you can do sort of parallel pathway.
Yeah.
If that makes sense, so.
Yeah, that's just nice to know, because that way they don't leave Henderson Bay for whatever life reason there
Right.
is, and they feel defeated that they can't go get a technical degree and a skilled trade because they don't have a high
Yes.
school degree. So that's nice to know. Thank you.
And that's, so, and I don't have the numbers on me, but when I've shared in December, we have X number of kids who are super seniors that will graduate this year. I can't remember what the number is. The goal is to keep them, and if we can't keep them, to try to get them to something else. We don't want to just lose them, you know.
Yeah.
And sadly, sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Right, so.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, just speaking of your awesome site coordinator, Robin, she was
Yes.
telling me that you are going to have to order more stools because you have so many kids graduating more than
Yes.
ever before.
Yes,
That's a great problem to have.
right?
And I love the student leadership groups. I remember the first time we saw this data, the first time I did when I was on the board, so 5 years ago or 4 years ago, I remember thinking, wouldn't it be ideal if at least some of these categories, if students could see each other's responses? Because if you knew that just about everybody in the room thought nobody knew their name, it would probably change the way you acted and the way you felt about that information. you know?
Right.
So that's awesome.
Well, one of the questions, they come in two different spots. And one is like, in the sense of belonging, I think it's like, other students treat me with respect. And it's kind of low. But somewhere else in the survey, it says, I treat others with respect, and it's really high. And we're like, those two can't be the same, right? If, it can't work that way. If everyone's treating people with respect, then that other one should be here. So just having them look at that, it makes them realize, well, maybe we don't know what respect means to each other. So that's one of the things that we're talking about with that leadership group, so, yeah.
Question about the your goal of having students passing classes 3 to 4, 4 to 4 classes, and I'm curious about what you think the biggest challenges are. Is it students completing the work and getting credit for work done, or is it a demonstration of proficiency in the classes, or what are the kids struggling with outside of things that we know, but the grades specifically?
It's mostly completing work.
Okay.
Right. It's a student who, a student who can't, right, who's struggling with the content, that's easy to, not easy, but it's easier to work with, I think, than a student who won't, who doesn't do the work. That's harder to break through. So if we can keep them in class and doing and trying, we have pretty good results. It's when they're not present, right? So that's a tough thing. And sometimes they're there, but they're not present, right? So if a student is in class but not able to do class, how do we get them to be able to focus on class? So that's where that mindfulness comes in, and trying to get them to feel like, okay, I'm here today, I'm gonna do the best I can today.
Mm-hmm. And I just also wanted to point out that I appreciate the relationship mapping. I think that it is probably an excellent exercise for you all to see visually, but just I think, going into this profession, you probably didn't think that you would be doing that. People, especially when you're teaching at a secondary level, you're looking at content specifically, but to put so much effort into knowing the kids it's hardening and encouraging for us.
I think Ty said it, at Goodman we teach kids, and I'd say at Henderson Bay we teach kids. You go to a lot of schools and they say, oh, I teach, I was a social studies teacher.
Yeah.
No, I was a kid teacher first. But that is key.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Kind of to what you were talking about just a minute ago about being present, how much do you guys track just attendance data and how closely and correlation and all that?
We track it. It is tough because we have students who are gone for a variety of reasons, right? And so, and I would say that's an area that we can improve in terms of, but we have, we send out letters and we send out phone calls and those things, and it's still a challenge to get, with some kids, just to get them into the building. We try to get them, just come, and if we can get you there, you'll usually stay. And so, and sometimes if you have a student who hasn't been in school for 6 months or a year, just getting them to school is the key. They might not pass a bunch of classes, right? But if we can keep them there, so I'm thinking of a student who started with us in November, passed only 1 out of 4 classes, but he's still coming. And so it's like that's a win because we might be able to keep him coming and now get to hopefully 3 out of 4, 4 out of 4, and start building that up. But getting them through the door sometimes is a challenge.
Yeah, just thinking about, four at the door, if they're not even there at the door.
Right.
How else do you reach besides email and letters and pro forma stuff? Like, really that's a huge hurdle. And like you said, it does follow that if you can get over that, there's half your battle right there.
Yeah. And it's, with our service area, it's a challenge. If you live out on the KP and you get on the bus at 6:20 and you miss that bus, you might not be able to get in. And so, that's a challenge. I've offered to, give us a call and maybe we can figure out a way to get you. And sometimes we've done that and to get kids in. So, is your neighbor going into work? Is there a way that you can get here? So, but that is the toughest, but also creating that culture where they want to be at school, that's a huge part of it.
Okay, we're going to move on to item 8.1. Under old business, this is the second reading and adoption of the honors chemistry curriculum. So is there any discussion prior to a vote? No, I will just say thank you to the team for sitting down with us and explaining everything. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the adoption of the honors chemistry curriculum?
So moved.
Is there a second? I'll second. It has been moved by David and seconded by Lori to approve the honors chemistry curriculum. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The motion is carried. Honors chemistry curriculum has been approved.
Thank you very much.
Okay. We made you sweat that one. I know. I know. All right. We're going to roll through. Almost done
I feel
here.
like the Wizard of Oz up here. I know. We just got one.
Item 9.1, under new business, board committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports to make? I'll just look down here, starting with you guys.
Arts Council, co-chair. Yeah, we just started it. So, yeah, the Arts Council met last week. I was elected co-chair. We are lagging a little bit. Linda is having some health issues, who was doing the assessment for us. So, but it's great. It's a great group. They're very inspired. So, yeah. Nothing really happened at that meeting other than organizational. Yeah.
Yeah. There we go. I have a couple. So over midwinter, we had our quarterly OSPI capital facilities advisory meeting, the statewide one. So pretty sober outlook, considering, only one bond measure passed in the last election, and then kind of given legislative priorities for funding that capital projects were not high on the list. So what that did, that led to a really interesting conversation about just the level of education that needs to happen around our legislators and kind of the broader community, if you will, around true cost of facilities, right? And like what it actually is that goes into cost of a school. And so it kind of made me smile because think of how much work we did with that, right? For the 2019 bond, and not how that was sort of a centerpiece of that work. And I felt kind of smug sitting there quietly saying, well, Peninsula School District has already been, we're 2 steps ahead of you on that. But anyway, it was good work. So it's, the other piece that was also eye-opening was they talked about the revisions to the WSSP, Washington Sustainable Schools Protocol. It didn't seem like things were getting a whole lot more stringent. It was a little bit of give and take on things, which is, you're required to go through and meet these protocols in order to receive the construction assistance funding that we got. So that was a little dry, but it led to the bigger discussion about the Clean Buildings Act, right? And that meaning that, that's going to impact a lot of our schools coming up here in the future about the need to benchmark our energy use and then how we're going to move to improve that. So it should make for some very interesting discussions for our capital projects team going forward. Inclusionary practices met last week, Zoomed with Katie Novak on that. It was a great one. We all met as a group. Well, some of us met at Artendale and then saw all the faces on the Zoom. But I think for me that it was this was the first one where I really felt like I kind of connected with and understood when you talk about universal design for learning, not just the benefits for the children who need a little bit more support and resources, but how translating that elevates the skill set of our educators, and how when you're looking at what our teachers have been asking us about have been asking for, has been increased professional development, increased professional learning, and how this really can be, if done properly, that bridge. And then how, like some very specific examples of how these universal design strategies, while targeting specific, kids that may need extra support, really do benefit all of our kids. So that was very cool to see. So I'd encourage, if any of you guys want to come to the next one, it's good. Special Education Parent Advisory Council was Tuesday night? Yeah, I think. I've been in this building 3 nights in a row now in the same room for different things. Yeah. So, but no, it was a great CPAC meeting. A lot of new parent faces, some new staff faces. Carrie Alshire, psychologist, our school psychologist at Pioneer, did an excellent presentation on special education evaluations. And she struck an incredible balance between how highly technical and involved it is, but without making it very accessible. And so we had parents who were like at the beginning end of it, like that were literally going through the process, who like during conversations afterwards, it was like, thank goodness, right? Like it was really an important presentation for them to hear. And the best part is the first time it was able to be recorded. So that's going to be now on the special education, on the district website. So we're hoping, each meeting gets a little bit better, reaches a little more people, which is the goal. And then Literacy Task Force. I'm so out of my league in this group, but it's fantastic to just take the fire hydrant of information in, looking at our current curriculum, the Reading Wonders and ECRI through K1 and 2, and kind of what we were doing was an exercise in lining that up against this sort of science of reading rubric for best practices and trying to kind of pick that apart. I admittedly struggled a little bit with it, but there were some very rich conversations around me. And what was really cool was we were signing up afterwards to go to site visits to other schools and other districts that are very high performing. So I think that's going to be pretty cool to see that come out next month, because I know we're all very interested in that and how we're doing on our reading. So that's it.
Last week I attended the Parent District Council. So it was actually a good opportunity to listen to what John was able to give them an update on what what was going on in the school district, and it gave us an opportunity also to talk about, similar to what you said about capital projects, but was able to give them a good understanding of some of the things that are going on in the state legislature around potential lack of funding around special ed, lack of funding around TK. I don't know if, Lisa, were you at that meeting? Okay. I can't remember who was sitting next to John. Oh, I'm sorry, Melissa was there. Sorry. Yeah, my brain's getting a little foggy. So anyway, it was nice for them to be able to give an update and to be able to talk about those kind of issues that we're facing, sadly, around potential losses in transportation funding, potential losses in special education and so forth. And it also gave us an opportunity to talk to them about ways to thank our bus drivers and thank some of our groups that may not, people take cookies to the teachers, or they'll take a bouquet of fruit to the staff in the office. But sometimes the bus drivers, especially high school ones, they don't see the parents every day because they're the kids can walk themselves to the bus stop. So it just gave us an opportunity to talk about how the schools and the parents can thank other parts of our school district staff other than just the traditional folks in the school building. So that was, Parent District Council. As a legislative rep, I'm probably going to steal your board comment, sorry. But so as a legislative rep, last weekend, do you want me to say it or you want to wait? No. So Natalie and myself and Creston and two of our student reps got to go down to Olympia on Sunday. And it was really great for our student reps to go down there and to be able to see and hear what's going on from WASA and WASBO and WASDA and all these groups, and to hear their side of what's going on. So I just thought that was a great opportunity for them. There was a lot of student reps in Olympia on that Sunday. It was really nice to see so much representation down there, and hopefully going forward, now that we're out of the pandemic and stuff, that maybe we'll encourage more of our student reps to get down there next year with us. In the past they've all gone, but this year I think there were some other things going on so we went down there on Sunday, and then on Monday, Kristen and Natalie and I went back again, and as ledge reps, Natalie and I, part of our job is to advocate for our school district, and so we were able, fortunately, to meet in Senator Randall's office and talk to her about some of the things that we have concerns about. She gave us a couple ideas that I wasn't too keen on, but anyway, it gave us a good opportunity to dialogue back and forth with her. And then, just by chance, we were sitting up in the gallery watching some of the votes being cast, and they took a break, and we didn't really expect an hour break. So Representative Caldier and Representative Hutchins looked at us and went like that, and we made a mad dash and had lunch together. And so we were able to talk to them about our transitional kindergarten and special ed and some of the things. It's nice to meet with our state legislators with just us and not just with the WASDA group, because the WASDA group's talking about the top 5 that the WASDA Resolutions Committee and Ledge Committees, which I'm on, their top 5 priorities, which may not necessarily be ours, although this time some of them were. Special ed, transportation funding. But it gives us an idea, an opportunity to talk to them about local needs, not necessarily statewide needs. So that was a great opportunity for us. So those are my, I guess I'm the legislative rep. Is that a committee? I don't know, but I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it is. So it was a nice opportunity to get down there. So thanks.
Well, I'm glad someone's been doing some work because I've been on vacation for 2 weeks. I have nothing to say. But David, thank you for attending Parent District Council for me. And just, we had our monthly board meeting for the WIAA District 3 board that I'm on. And it was just interesting to hear all that many districts are just celebrating some of the same things we are and struggling with some of the same things we are. And so it's an interesting meeting from that regard. And then just hearing about the success of the basketball tournaments had just finished, over the weekend, and the other winter sports. And so it's always good to be, I'm the only, WASDA person on this committee, so it's a good perspective to bring and to know what's going on. So thanks for keeping the boat afloat while I was away.
We love seeing all the pictures. I've had one meeting, CT advisory, which I was unable to attend out of the committees that I participate on. Really, I've kind of pulled back on some of the committee participation to work on policy, and I love to be able to stand in and go to the committee meetings when you guys are not able to. So it gives me a good idea of all that you do. But really, just listening to this, you guys do a lot of work in the district. So thank you for all of that. David mentioned all the ledge stuff, so I won't go into that, and I think we can move on to superintendent's report.
All right. Well, I want to thank the staff that left, and good for them. But Delana! Oh, Pioneer! Oh boy, I think there's a prize in store for the two of you. I just really want to thank this principal group for doing their SIPs differently this year and kind of more in pathways. And so I look forward to the board giving feedback, what you really enjoyed. Did the format work? What helpful hints would you give? And so that we will be prepared for next year as early as possible, so that the BLTs, building leadership teams, can do their SIP plan, and it will be in a format that makes sense. So thank you for allowing us to kind of reiterate and iterate throughout the year. So, and it was, I know that these nights are long, but they are really powerful. And as a board, you really ask great questions, which allow the leaders to define and describe and explain what they're doing. And so, like, tonight was a great model of that. So thank you for all of the administrators that are here and have since left. Just a few things that I just want to shout out. I was also at the Wizard of Oz. And I have to say that Goodman Middle School, oh my goodness, like, I am a middle school person. There were a lot of kids in there, and they were very well behaved. And even I was sitting next to a student who was verbal, and he would turn around and he would say things, but I heard him say, "Boy, that witch is really good." So, and the singing was really good. So I was really impressed, and I thought it was kind of great that they didn't actually finish it, so you'd have to go back and see the end. So kudos to that whole group. It was obviously one of the first times they had ever done that, and the kids were really enjoying that. Arts Infusion, I had an opportunity to see Mr. Pleasant. You saw him up on Delana's slide from Discovery. What a character he is. We need to get him out with the staff, I think. Boy, kids were having a great time at Purdy, and his dance and movement and tying that to mathematics and allowing kids to move. Like, to move around, which is what they do anyway. So it was really great. I got to dance with a couple students, and you will not see those videos. So, but that was really great. And I just want to shout out to our 3 schools that kind of embrace that art fusion and infusion. And I really am looking forward to the arts feedback that we will get from Dr. Miller by the end of this year. So I know she's really excited about it. We had a great legislative session. I thought that we are able to have impactful. We're still looking at that Purple Star designation. I haven't heard the very end of it. It seems like it's just sitting. So we are looking forward to that, finishing the finish line. Also, special education, our transportation, and our regionalization. I just wanted to kind of publicly say we are losing a 4% experience factor. We have asked to have that revisited, and we had an opportunity to speak with our legislators on that. I had a wonderful time seeing a portion of Breaking Down the Walls at Peninsula High School last week. That was pretty powerful, and it was really great to be around students, and they were really enjoying it. And I got to be partnered up with Josie. She was my last partner, so that just happened, our student rep. So she's really a light and does a great job, but that was a powerful day. Our district wellness committee met, and that is really looking at benefits, the structure for our staff, and how we support the entire staff around wellness and all that it encompasses, working with our unions. And there is a significant grant that I'm sure that Carol would love to come and talk about, but they were granted an NEA grant from Washington, D.C. To do that work. But on our end, it's really, and I'm looking at Ashley because she's really kind of spearheading that along with the unions around making it easier to sign up for insurance, getting a doctor, getting a dentist, just simple things, and making sure that our employees, when we hire them and when they re-up every year, that it's clear and supportive. So I appreciate Ashley and Carol sponsoring that. As you said, our 100% reading at standard, our early literacy. We've done a lot of really difficult work understanding, which is important, and now we will be going out and seeing best practices and gathering partners. So I really look forward to that work, and I want to thank Lisa and Natalie for sponsoring that and facilitating that, and all of our experts that are coming to the table, and our staff, and having some parents on that. It's really an honor and a privilege to be able to do that work, and the result will make this district much stronger in providing quality early literacy education and aligning it to the science of reading. And I'm learning as a non-elementary person, I'm learning a lot about both the past, why we're here, and then what the future has in store. We have had the professional development on culture of belonging and inclusion. That's been sponsored by John Yellowlees and Dan DeZone, along with Puget Sound ESD, and I know that that training is continual, both with the administrators, the both flight, LST, is it LST, and principals, and their staff members as well, their lead staff, and so looking forward to that. I had the opportunity to be at the AGRIP. It's a national conference for risk management pools, governmental pools. It sounds dry. It's actually kind of a scary conference because the last time we were there, we were talking about COVID, and it was March of 2020, and we were wondering what COVID was, and then it happened. So this meeting was the first time that we have met all together again, and really it was around cybersecurity, error and omissions, and all of the national lawsuits that happen. So it gives me a good perspective as a superintendent about the pinch points, and when we partner with our local Washington State Risk Management Pool, I sit on that board, and they received a national award for being a high-performing pool. But it also is an ability for us to work together to make sure that we don't have errors and omissions, that we do things the correct way, so that we mitigate risk. So, pretty serious conference. This next week, I have a Superintendent Student Advisory Group Student Voice Symposium, where I'm bringing all 3 of my superintendent groups that have students on them. There are approximately about 15 to 20 students in each school. I'm bringing them all 3 together, and we'll be at Pioneer, so thank you for hosting us. We wanted a neutral site for the high schools, and we're bringing the high school students together. Number one, to be all together because they've never done that before in a group. We're going to share district panorama data at a district level, not have it broken down. And we're really going to talk about what does belonging look like across the school district. So we're going to do some fun activities, some building activities, and just get them mixing and then capturing their student voice. So we're going to ask them to solve some problems and have some ideas. So and that'll be the first one. Then we'll talk about next steps and ideas that they have for next year. So if we thought of ambassadors, our student ambassadors, kind of reformulating what does that look like across the district, bringing the 3 high schools together. I had a really great conversation with Henderson Bay and some students. We had a meeting earlier this spring. Some students had expressed some concepts, and I know Natalie was there at that meeting. I had an opportunity to go back and speak with those students and the teacher. And what I heard is that we need to be kinder to each other. We need to bring everyone together. We need to know each other, and we need to care about each other. So it just really aligned with the opportunity. Whenever we speak with students, they are amazing. They have great solutions, and they are hopeful for their future. So looking forward to that. I was invited to Pioneer to Marshall's class, Miss Marshall. And when I was out doing my reading in Pioneer earlier, I had the opportunity to read Where the Wild Things Are. And then when I was there, the students started asking me about the phases of the moon. And we realized in the book that the phases of the moon were not the same. So when Max goes away, and then when he comes back, so they've done an investigation, and they have invited me back to present to me next week. I'm so excited. I'm just so excited. I am over the moon, literally excited about this. So Tanya has helped set that up. So I get to go on 3/16 and go and learn all of what they found out. So true investigation, that is truly a STEM activity. And then lastly, I just want to leave you with on March 22nd, so the day before we have our next meeting, we are sponsoring a Women in Leadership event at Pierce County Skills Center. When I say we, it's Pierce County and King County Superintendent Group. And we wanted to have our own Women in Leadership on this side of the mountain because, on the other side of the mountain we were invited. So there were a few superintendents that got together, and I just wanted to let you know that we will be highlighting 2 different, it's a lunchtime, but the first committee or the first group that goes will be 4 Gig Harbor leaders that I get to play Oprah and interview them publicly and talk about their leadership journey and things that they would say are their not superpowers, but things in their life that have led them to be leaders. And I just wanted to highlight, we have our mayor, Mayor Tracy Markley will be there. Gig Harbor Chamber, Miriam will also be there. Jennifer Stiefel, who is the president of a business, and also Lisa Christensen, the Norwegian consulate, and all four of them will be highlighted. So I just think that that's an amazing thing. They're going to talk about collaboration, how they collaborate, and how important collaboration is to get work done and to really highlight the community. So I'm really honored that they all said yes, and I will do my best to interview them in a way that really highlights the great work that they've been able to do. So with that, I'm done. Thanks.
Moving on to the final item, we've got board discussion and comments. So who wants to kick it off? Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Good. I'm not one to shy away from making a comment. Per our student reps, I just want to say, because it's the senior leaders in the school district, for the most part, are all in the room, and even though we have tons of teachers and staff and everything that make everything happen, for the most part, the people in this room, all those folks in some capacity fall under you. So for me, it's always challenging to listen to folks come and to either the meeting or whether it's in town or in emails or social media and say how this particular school district is failing in this or failing in that, or we're doing this or we're doing that. And, coming post-pandemic, obviously that was a challenge for everyone in the country, world, really. And so I just wanted to say that I personally believe that people would be flocking to the Peninsula School District if they could, that because in Pierce County, because I did I looked it up, there's not a school district in Pierce County that is above us in any of the OSPI categories. And I researched that during this board meeting based on some things that were said earlier. So in every category, the Peninsula School District is 10 to 20% higher at OSPI. And I think that is amazing and is a testament to all the people that are in this room. We got 6 brand new schools that we should be extremely proud of, overwhelming levy passage, which we should be extremely proud of. And so I'm just saying to the folks that are watching, be proud of the Peninsula School District, because this board is, and we think you should be too. Thank you.
Well said. Okay, I will just recognize, I think we have a birthday in the room today. So Chris, we feel so honored that this is how you chose to spend your birthday. Happy birthday to you. And with that, we are adjourned until our next meeting, which is on March 23rd, here at Swiftwater at 6:00 p.m.
The marathon meetings are over.